where it's 1400 hours Central European summer time. My name is Professor Hugh Hill, and on behalf of ISU's faculty, I wish you a very excellent afternoon in terms of the Master's Team Project presentations. We warmly welcome all present, including those viewing via YouTube. Naturally, we welcome our many Team Project supporters who have provided immeasurable support. Finally, we welcome parents, guardians, family members, and friends of our current Master's class of 2023. Now, the Master of Space Studies program started here in Strasbourg in 1995, and the Team Project has always been a fundamentally important part of the curriculum. Hence, this is the 28th iteration of the Team Project presentations, final presentations. This year, we have two topical and timely interdisciplinary projects, TP Venus and TP Commercial Space Station. Our 37 students have worked in teams of 18 and 19 since early November 2022, and today is the culmination of their Herculean labors. TP Venus will present first, and they have up to 60 minutes to summarize their TP research. And this will be followed by up to 30 minutes of Q&A on the part of ISU's resident faculty, which apart from myself will include Professor Walter Peters, Professor Gungling Sun, Professor Virginia Votling, Dr. Taiwo Tajimola, and Dr. Bertrand Goldman. Following this, there will be a 15-minute intermission. Thereafter, TP Commercial Space Station will present their work. We should conclude by 5:15 Strasbourg time. To both teams, very, very good luck.
Thank you very much, Professor. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexandra Suba. I'm a member of the Team Venus, and I will be your host for this first presentation. Before we start, I would like to introduce you to Poll Everywhere, or Poll EV, which we'll be using punctually throughout the presentation to ask you questions, whether you're on-site or online. Please go to pollev.com/ISU-Venus072 or use your phone to scan the QR code present on this slide. When it is time to answer a question, the page on Poll EV will automatically update. You do not need to rescan the code. However, the QR code and the link will be displayed on each slide preceding a Poll EV question, so keep your eyes open for these. That being said, it is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to the Team Project presentation on Venus, inspiring the next generation of space explorers. As not everyone here may be familiar with these ISU team projects, and even though Professor Hill gave us a nice introduction, I would like to summarize a bit and provide some context. The team projects are one of ISU's staples, present in both their shorter space study program, as well as in the Master of Space Studies. The themes for this TP are recommended by ISU Academic Council, and for the MSS23 class, two topics were selected. One, as mentioned earlier, on commercial space stations, and will be presented to you later this afternoon by your talented colleagues. Do not miss it. And the second topic was, you guessed it, Venus, with the goal of providing a multidisciplinary perspective on Venus exploration and promoting the importance of studying the planet. For the 37 students of the MSS23 class, our ISU TP module started in November 2022, and today is the final day. Or is it? Each TP had the liberty to decide how they wanted to interpret the given theme and which project they wanted to develop. We, the 18 students that are part of TP Venus, as we call it, took possession of the subject, produced a literature review to better understand the past, current, and future state of Venus exploration, and with the guidance and advice from ISU faculty, in particular Dr. Bertrand Goldman, as well as Professor Hugh Hill, and the support of our teaching assistants, Adam Nawal and Victoria Rendon, we selected the project we wanted to work on, generated a final written report, and finally today, we give you a final presentation. 6 of us have been tasked to share with you our journey. Myself, Alexandra Lisuba, also known as Sasha by my colleagues, will be with you throughout the presentation. I will be joined by James Z, Darren Berline, Paulina Stern, Solène Wurtzpra, as well as Pedro Mena Barranco. Together, we'll explain to you how ISU's 3I philosophy as well as our studies of the planet Venus, the challenges of its exploration, and a realization that Venus is mainly absent from the general public knowledge, led us to design a TP project that is maybe slightly outside what ISU has previously known. As a team, we have decided to focus on science communication and to develop an educational board game based on Venus exploration to help stimulate and spark an interest into Venus within the general public. Now, as this is the first one, I'm exceptionally warning you, the next slide is a poll, EV poll. So please get your phones out. It is important to note that we, ISU students, faculty, alumni, we are obviously biased. We love space and space exploration. We would not be here otherwise. Even our family and friends who are listening today know more about the general public, know more than the general public about space. Not necessarily because they like it, but because we don't really give them much of a choice, right? And yet, it appears that some of the news about Venus escape even us, the space enthusiasts. Please join Paul Levy's website for a first question. And without cheating, are you able to tell us which of the future Venus missions has lost most of its funding in March 2023? You won't be graded on this, no need to guess. This is a very good breakdown. Luckily, the ISU family do seem to keep with all matters of space exploration, including Venus. This is good news, but does not reflect what is happening in the general public. And I am saddened to tell you that indeed, NASA took an almost unprecedented decision to reduce the 2024 budget of the Veritas mission from the expected 56.7 million to only 1.5 million, as a result, postponing indefinitely the mission. Would this have happened if the general public was more aware of Venus and the importance of its exploration? Now, we think not. And this is the hypothesis we will present to you over the course of our presentation. Today, we will walk you through our findings, starting with an overview of Venus exploration and how we quantified the general public interest. From this, we will take some time to discuss the importance of science communication, especially for space agencies, and present how games can be a vehicle for knowledge dissemination. We'll then take some time to explain how we designed the game that we're calling Cytherian City, Welcome to Venus, our educational board game, and how we decided to model some key aspects of reality into the game. In true ISU interdisciplinary fashion, we'll then present to you our business plan for the commercialization of the game. And after the conclusions and recommendations, I will take some time to present the next steps of our projects. But for now, I would like to leave the floor to my colleague James T, who will present to you an overview of Venus exploration. James, you may now take the floor.
Amazing. Thank you, Sasha. So, to get started, I'd like to give everyone a bit of a background on Venus. As most of you probably know, Venus is the second planet from the Sun, and in many ways, it's very similar to Earth. It has a similar size, it has a similar distance, and it's made of raw key material with a thick atmosphere. However, if we look closer, Venus is a drastically different planet. Various missions sent to Venus discovered that the surface was incredibly harsh. Its temperature is over 400 degrees Celsius, it has a surface pressure of over 90 times that of Earth. As well, the atmosphere contains corrosive sulfuric acid, making it very inhospitable to life. But even today, we still have many questions about Venus's formation, evolution, and its current state. In fact, we know more about the topology of Pluto than we do about Venus. Gaining a better understanding of Venus will provide insights into how our solar system was formed and support future studies on exoplanets, which are so similar. But this lack of knowledge about Venus isn't for lack of effort. In fact, Venus was incredibly important as an exploration target during the early eras of spaceflight in the 1960s. Many important space exploration firsts happened here, including the first flyby of another planet, the first impact of another planet's surface, the first atmospheric entry, landing, and the first orbiter of another planet. So exploration of Venus was inspired by both scientific interest and for new technology development. While these missions were primarily Soviet in origin and began during the Cold War, with the US only participating starting in the 1980s, there's been a lot of activity and a lot of research done here. However, after the discovery of Venus's inhospitable surface and the decline of the USSR, exploration missions to Venus have largely stopped since the 1990s. Unfortunately, over the next 3 decades, the US and the USSR, now Russia, did not revisit Venus at all. Venus was once a planet where we sent missions every other year, and now for these last 3 decades, only 2 orbiters were sent. And in fact, interest in Venus had declined so much that ESA's Venus Express mission contained almost all recycled designs from the Mars Express and the Rosetta missions. However, with the discovery of the potential habitable region in Venus's clouds, a new fleet of missions have been announced, including by the US and Russia. These missions have once again included many exploration firsts, including Shukrayan-1, which is the first Indian mission to Venus, as well as Rocket Lab's Venus Lifefinder mission, which is the very first privately funded interplanetary mission. These all have the goal of probing for signs of life, and it's an exciting opportunity to explore Venus with modern and dedicated astrobiological instruments. However, there is a concern that these missions represent just a burst of interest, and without sustained exploration, so much knowledge and technology is lost, and we can already see issues from this today. So, how can we sustain interest in Venus? This starts with the public. We have two graphs here showing Google search results that illustrate where, when, and how much people search for certain keywords. Firstly, on the bottom here, we have where these search keywords are done over the world, from early 2000s to today. And you can see here on Mars, in the red, everyone around the world is interested in Mars exploration, even countries that do not have active missions on Mars. Whereas Venus on the right here, on the left here in the blue, you can see this interest is only very concentrated in a few small pockets. If we look at the distribution over time as well on the top graph, you can see here Mars has generally a higher baseline in the red than Venus, and ahead of each Mars mission, you can see a large spike in the search results. And that indicates that space agencies are actively promoting Mars missions to the general public and stimulating interest in searches. Whereas Venus, during this exact same time period, barely shows up, and including in this time period are 2 missions to Venus, and you see no spike in interest at all. So, if the public isn't interested in these missions, it's much harder for the scientific community to advocate for funds and maintain a workforce that can pass on knowledge. This can already be seen today, where fundamental discoveries of Venus are being done with 30-year-old data, and we are still not able to get a mission onto Venus yet. So we know that public opinion strongly affects funding for missions, and these funds are primarily allocated by government agencies. But there is also a feedback loop, since space agencies invest significant resources in outreach and communications to educate the public about their activities. Looking here now in published media, we have on the top graph a list of space agencies and various search keywords that we did on their websites to show how often space agencies are talking about each planet. And you can see here that between Venus and Mars, there is this stark difference where there is just more public media from space agencies talking about Mars than Venus. Similarly, we did a similar search of keywords in 2 scientific databases as well as over LinkedIn to gauge general scientific interest and interest from the public. And we noticed the exact same trends, where Venus shows up less frequently than Mars in all types of media. Even in non-scientific media, Mars appears much more in popular culture. For example, there is the movie The Martian that most people know with Matt Damon. So, the problem our team has identified is that there is still much to learn about Venus, but sustained interest in Venus exploration is still needed to support this. To do that, there needs to be more representation of Venus in public media, and we need to work harder to inform people about activities around Venus. I'll now hand you back to Sasha, who will lead us into how our team will achieve this.
Thank you, James. In this first section, James Z provided us all with not only some knowledge about Venus and the past missions that explore the planet, but also about the exciting future missions that are targeting Venus in the next decade or so. However, he also presented a research data that indicate that the general public is much less interested in Venus exploration than, for example, Mars exploration. We believe that this is a direct result of a lack of frequent Venus mission, which results in a lack of representation of Venus in popular media, such as books, movies, TV shows, and games. The more a planet is present in popular culture, the more the general public is aware and interested in missions toward this planet. And this is crucial, as the interest of the public has an influence on how space agencies determine their budgets. Space agencies know this, and they all spend consequent time and effort on efficient science communication. Now, science communication takes many forms, but nowadays, in our internet age, a lot of it is done through social media. And out of curiosity, if you could go to Poll EV and let us know, which space agency do you follow on social media? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, other. can vote for more than one. Now, did you know that there are 77 space agencies in the world? We're only listing 10 here, and maybe some of you are seeing these acronyms for the first time. So just as a quick recap, we have the French Space Agency, the Chinese one, the Canadian, the European one, ESA, of course, the Israel one, the Indian one, NASA, obviously this one people seem to know, Roscosmos, the Russian one, the United Arab Emirates Space Agency, and the Japanese one. And with no surprise, we can see that the answers are strongly skewed toward NASA, of course, and probably due to the fact that we're in Europe, ESA. Hopefully, you will take this opportunity to correct the imbalance and follow more space agencies on social media. And to complete all of this, Darren Berline will now take the floor and present to you some key aspects of science communication, and in particular, how science communication is done at the level of space agencies. He will then continue to share some information on the different types of learning and how learning can be efficiently done through games. Darren, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sasha. So, space agencies invest significant resources into developing effective communication strategies to educate the public about their activities. They promote their activities through outreach, public relations, collaborations, and marketing efforts. Research suggests that increased exposure to science fiction is associated with greater public support for their activities. Space agencies adapt vastly their different strategies depending on their target audience. For children, they focus on stimulating interest through a sense of wonder, through space and exploration. And for young adults, they prefer focusing on developing a strong STEM ability. But it appears that space agencies could make more effort in engaging young adults to develop an interest in the space sector. And as we've discussed earlier, social media bridges this gap by allowing a two-way communication between a broad audience and space agencies. However, this relies on passive information, which limits the engagement between space agencies and the audience. So space agencies play an essential role in promoting exploration and research, and they need to develop targeted communication strategies that can generate more interest and promote greater public support. While social media has helped bridge this gap between space agencies and the general public, again, social media relies on passive information, and it lacks the interaction that young adults may receive with targeted activities towards children. So young adults may not be getting the same level of engagement as children, and space agencies need to adapt their strategies depending on their target audience, but there's still room to develop more creative and interactive approaches. This approach will help get young adults more excited into the space industry. So we'll do another poll as we've done before. And this way, in this question, we will be testing the best way to communicate, or how do you believe the best way to communicate science to the general public. So in this questionnaire, we've included formal lectures, general public conferences, science documentaries, entertainment products, and also the category of learning by doing. Okay, so entertainment products, yes, includes movies, podcasts, such as Interstellar, Mars missions. Okay, so yeah, entertainment products are top. All right. So yeah, so the next section we will discuss some of those topics that we just polled in a little bit more detail, and present learning by doing and educational or entertainment products. So educational games have proven to be effective in science communication, particularly for young teenagers and young adults. Game mechanics play a crucial role in communicating knowledge and keeping players engaged. Educational games are designed to simplify complex ideas and offer an interactive learning by doing experience in a collaborative environment. Through continuous engagement and rewards, educational games keep players motivated throughout their play and encourage social interactions. With upcoming missions to Venus, we believe that this is the right time to propose an educational game for Venus exploration. Our team has developed and proposed an educational board game centered on the exploration of Venus, which seeks to stimulate public interest, also while offering academic content through interactive gameplay. Board games offer flexibility in how information is presented, and through conversations and game mechanics, we're able to increase various concepts of mission design and various ideas of new space exploration. So we have designed the board game in such a way to stimulate an interest and provide accurate scientific content through the gameplay. So it is evident that more could be done to target young adults. We believe that our game addresses this gap by developing awareness, inciting a sense of wonder and interest in space and Venus exploration. We believe that educational games are effective tools for science communication, especially engaging young adults. Our game aims to stimulate and educate about Venus exploration through this active play. And we hope to incite and develop more creative, interactive communication approaches in young adults. So we hope to bridge the gap that space agency communication strategies are lacking, and hope to stimulate deeper interest in space and Venus exploration. So with the game, players gain knowledge in educational games through active play and active feedback, rather than passively receiving information as described before. And as mentioned, game mechanics are proven to communicate complex scientific ideas, and in such a way we've designed it to communicate a multidisciplinary set of knowledge and science and develop a sense of creative and true-to-life decision-making. These will be explained in further detail in the next section. And so yeah, so by using educational games as a tool for science communication, we can provide young adults with increased knowledge and increased awareness in space exploration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. Darren Berline explains to us the importance of science communication and how space agencies communicate with the general public. He also described the different models of learning and why we decided, as part of a project, to develop an educational board game to add as a tool for science communication and education about Venus and space exploration. He introduced some of the notions that will be further developed to explain the design choices we made for the game. As you may have been expecting, let's have another Polivy question before we continue. Now, in your opinion, what should be some of the key points about Venus, Venus exploration, and space exploration we should try to convey to the general public to this educational board game? To help focus your answers, we selected a few points. You can vote for multiple ones if you want. The type of missions that have and will visit Venus and how they influenced by the Venusian planetary characteristics, how world events influence space exploration in general and Venus exploration in particular, how technologies and resources, including money, can be combined to allow space exploration, or how we may one day have crewed missions to Venus if enough is not about the planet. This is a good breakdown. Now, we should make everyone happy, as these are the 4 points we have decided to focus on. And to explain all of this to you, I am inviting Paulina Stern and Solène Wurtzpra to walk you through some of the game design decisions that were made and why, in addition to providing information on how Venusian missions have been developed and how resources and technologies help determine these missions, we also decided to integrate world events as well as an inspirational goal for the game. Paulina, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Sasha. So let's keep going. All right. Solène and I are very excited to present our game to you today. Our game is called Cytherian City. Welcome to Venus. So we'll walk you through the concept of the game, the flow, why should anyone play our game, and what can they learn by playing it. Just to recap the reasons for creating the game at this time, as my colleagues have mentioned, in the upcoming decade, there are several missions planned to Venus. And missions like Venus Life Finder and Da Vinci are particularly exciting because they're looking for possibilities of life in the clouds of Venus. It will be a game changer if life, extinct or extant, is found on Venus. So we see this as a great opportunity to capitalize on these missions and reignite the interest in Venus. With this game, our goal is to educate, build awareness, and ignite future generations' curiosity about and explore the mysterious planet. All right. I'd like to highlight what sets our game apart. While there are numerous games about Mars, there are very few that explore the mysteries of Venus. By playing our game, you'll have an opportunity to discover what makes Venus one of the most fascinating places in the solar system. You'll have a chance to join the dream of building a floating human settlement and becoming a pioneer of the future. Our team has dedicated a lot of effort into creating a game that is challenging, scientifically credible, and entertaining. We'd like to invite you to join us on our journey to explore the enigma of Venus through a unique board game experience. All right. To orient you, let's look at the game basics. The game can be played by up to 5 characters that are fictitious space agencies competing to build a human settlement near Venus. To achieve this goal, the players will need to acquire the necessary scientific knowledge and the know-how. Right? In the next slide, we'll take a look at how would the players accomplish that. Right? So we'll start our journey on planet Earth, where players will accumulate resources. They will use those resources to build and develop or purchase missions. And through achieving those missions, they'll gain knowledge and know-how to build a human settlement. To achieve this goal, players will take turns during several rounds interacting with the game elements. And in the next few slides, I'll take you through the key game elements, and we'll start with the game objective. While establishing a human settlement near Venus is an ambitious goal, we realize that, it's no longer out of the realm of reality. This image you're seeing behind me is an actual concept mission. It's a NASA high-altitude Venus operational concept. It is a concept mission to send inflatable airships to the Venusian atmosphere and over several phases build capabilities towards sustained human presence. We had chosen a human settlement as the ultimate goal of the game due to its aspirational and science fiction-like nature, but we realized that there's a significant progress required to make this a reality. Building a settlement is also a highly multidisciplinary challenge, which is an ISU foundational principle we all hold dear to our hearts. Human presence near Venus would bring forth invaluable data in various fields, including greater understanding of astrobiology, Earth's origin and its evolutionary path, and the mechanisms that drive climate change. Crewed presence on Venus can also be a stepping stone to the human exploration to other planets in our solar system. In the game, the settlement cards provide the requirements that must be met. Those requirements can be fulfilled using the knowledge points which are gained through achieving missions. And as the next steps, we'll take a look at the missions as a game element. So our game is designed to reflect the reality of challenges of exploring Venus. Players must balance the complexity, the benefits, and the cost of each mission they undertake against the scientific gains. The emphasis on completing different types of missions, orbital, atmospheric, ground, is an accurate representation of real-life missions carried out for space exploration. Starting with simpler missions is a key strategy for acquiring knowledge and reducing the cost of future missions. Players cannot simply reach the goal in the first few rounds and will need to build their capabilities over time. These mechanisms reflect the realities of how space agencies develop their exploration programs to gather new knowledge and develop better technology, which is a nice segue. We'll talk about resources and technologies. The various resources in the game simulate the Earth-born resources such as raw materials, know-how, human resources, and money that are needed to develop and build the technology used for space exploration. On each resource card, a description is included, helping players to understand the importance and relevance of that specific resource. And those resources are then used to build the technologies. Last but not least element of the game is the world events, which have a significant influence on activities in the space sector. They can happen at any time and impact the space ecosystem as well as planned missions. We're modeling this in the game with event cards. A new event card is drawn at each turn that will modify the rules in some shape or form. This will lead to some resources or technologies being either easier or harder to obtain, and cooperation opportunities being encouraged or prevented. While these events will happen at a higher frequency in the game, not all will have a major impact on the game, and some may affect certain players only. The randomness of these events and their sudden impact, potentially forcing players to change their strategy midstream, will be analogous to the disruptiveness of reality. Well, I have given you a high-level tour of the game and its elements, and now my colleague Solène will join us on the stage to pull this all together for us.
Thank you, Paulina. So here you can see the final composition of the game. The main element is the board. It represents a portion of space between the Earth and Venus. This layout allows the players to immerse themselves in the journey of Venus. You can see the human settlement card, this one, that is placed in the middle of Venus in the board. To achieve this goal, the players need to gather different kind of resources, advanced materials, finance, knowledge, and also human resources. Once the player has gathered enough of them, he can build or pay for a technology. And thanks to those technologies, the player is able to realize the missions. And finally, like Paulina said, we will use event cards to represent random world events, like for example the COVID-19 pandemic that will affect the use of human resource cards, or a debate on the planetary protection, which affect the missions. Now that we talked through the game, we are excited to share with you how fun it is to play. All right, so now that you had an overview of the game, in the spirit of ISU, our game has several learning objectives. So we want the players to learn about the challenges of Venus exploration, the complexity of decision-making in space exploration, balancing competition and collaboration, and of course, we want them to have fun and enjoy the game. So there are many challenges that would need to be overcome to establish a human settlement on Venus, including developing technologies to protect humans from the planet's harsh environment, such as heat-resistant materials, radiation shielding, finding ways to produce food and other necessary resources in an hostile environment, the constant need to reduce mass power requirements, and of course, improve the safety of human exploration systems. Nonetheless, many scientists and space enthusiasts are optimistic that these challenges can be overcome with continued research and innovation. Space agencies today rely on collaboration to break through constraints, and it's rare for a space agency to create a significant program without the help of other states. The goal of any collaboration between space agencies is typically to pool resources to maximize the scientific and technological benefits of space activities while providing a safer funding environment and ensuring that participants share in benefits. This benefit sharing is typically enforced through prior agreements or treaties between participants and can vary by mission or program. However, this collaboration is strongly influenced by geopolitical context, most notably during the Cold War. The US and the USSR were in competition to be the first to reach the moon and driven by national prestige to win the space race, resulting in limited collaboration between the two space powers. Within Satyrian City, missions are selected and executed by a single player, which does not fully represent the collaborative reality. However, some collaborative elements, such as trading, exist within the game, and there is no restriction for players to form agreements. The motivation for players to initiate and agree to these exchanges is still primarily rooted in competition. Space agencies select missions based on their scientific merits, technological and programmatic risk, but also consider policy, economic, and legal factors in their decisions. In the process of decision-making, the science community is typically the start. At this stage, science objectives and technical requirements are the primary consideration. Having said that, national priorities have dictated the direction of exploration program, for example, with the Apollo missions. Agencies then undergo a selection process whereby the non-technical aspects begin to take the forefront. For example, for some agencies such as ESA, geographic return is a critical element in the decision-making process. National space agencies also have political consideration, and international factors such as demonstrating technological capability or promoting national prestige may also come into play. Once a mission is selected, the scientific and technical elements return to the forefront for the execution, with economic and other factors becoming more critical over time. Players in the game take on the role of space agency and must select missions to pursue that bring them toward their own goals. The decision-making process is simplified, but still captures many of the elements that real space agencies undergo. The complexities of collaboration and negotiation are less emphasized in the game, since only one player can commit to a mission, and there is only one primary goal that all players are competing towards. While this removes many of the political aspects that are present in space agency decision-making, there are still difficult choices and multiple factors at play when players are pursuing missions. Our game challenges players to build their space program with excitement of being in the driver's seat of a Venus exploration in a fun and interactive way. And now I return the floor back to Sasha.
Thank you, Solène. Solène Würzbra and Paulina Stern expose to you the design choices we have made in regards to developing an educational board game to promote interest of the general public for Venus exploration. Our proposed game offers players a thrilling race to be the first to accomplish a common goal of building a human settlement on Venus. This inspirational element will propel the players in an ideal world where the exploration of Venus is maintained and continued. The game mechanics, components, and objectives are designed to provide a balanced and engaging gameplay experience. We believe our game will inspire the next generation of space explorers and encourage players to learn more about Venus and space exploration. And in order to make it real, we have developed a business plan to look into the commercialization of Satyrian City board game. But of course, another Polivy question first. This one has a single real answer, and we're expecting ISU faculty to answer correctly as they have read a report. The question is simple. In 2021, what was the size of the global board game market? No cheating, of course, but give us your best guesstimate. The choices are 598 million euros, 2.3 billion euros, 12.7 billion euros, or 26.2 billion euros. Good guess. The results we found while developing our business plan is 12.7 billion euros. Congratulations to the winners here. Interestingly, educational games in general, had a global total market size of 10.4 billion in 2021. But I do not want to steal more of Pedro's thunder. Pedro Mena Barranco will walk you through the business plan we designed to commercialize our educational board game on Venus exploration. Pedro, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cesar. Okay, so I'm pretty impressed by the answers to that question, to be honest. And following on that, our game is not only going to educate, entertain, and provide science outreach, but it also is a sustainable financial model, as we will show through these slides. We will be entering two markets, two growing markets, the board game market and the educational game market, with the board game market being the 12.7 billion and growing at a 12% rate, and the educational game market with a 10 billion market and growing at a 22%. Moreover, we have chosen France as our base of operations. Oh, sorry for not turning the slide. I thought I pressed the button. Well, as I was saying, France is going to be our center of operations. It's a market of 400 million. And on top of that, the population is really into board games. 85% of the total population plays it. Apart from that, ISU is placed here, so we could use their connections and to foster the education and the content in our game. Although there is a big competition against multi-million-dollar companies with more experience in these markets, the strength of our product is the originality and the interdisciplinarity content that it has, which is designed to appeal a diverse audience across generations and educational backgrounds. Moving to our business plan scope, now we have to focus first on the conceptual design, then following into the prototyping and testing of the game, and finally into the commercialization of it. It is important to note that we have taken the assumption that the project will not be undergone by us as a company, but after phase 2, it will be undertaken by an established board game company as an entrepreneurial venture. The point is very important to understand the assumptions we have made in the business plan. After a successful launch in France, Cytherian City will expand to other European countries. The expansion strategy is focused on Germany, the UK, Spain, and Italy, and the game will be translated to other languages. Now, for our business model, I will start saying our price. Our price will be of 65 euros the product. This is an estimate or an average between the price of games in the board game and in the educational game market, and we will be targeting a large number of different customers, providing services to space agencies by promoting their activities, to the general public by seeking their entertainment, and to educators that seek to amend their abilities and update their pedagogical techniques. To ensure the success of Cytherian City, partnerships with relevant institutions will be sought. One potential partner will be ISA, another one Kines. With this, we not only want to provide with more knowledge to the players of our game, but also we want to ensure that these companies have a way of promoting themselves. Online sales will be the primary distribution method for the game, being 58% of our sales, preferably on the Amazon marketplace, while retail stores and educational institutions will be part of our consumer pool as well, but in a smaller quantity, representing the 10% and the 32% of our sales respectively. Okay. Now moving into our market strategy, we based it on our customer analysis. First, I will explain our customer pool, which will be formed by people from the range of 15 to 54 years old. This allows us to have the most wide range of people possible, and that way expand the science knowledge that is the end goal of this game. The marketing plan shown in the slide has been made attending to the different groups that we could find in this range of age, depending on their passion for space and the amount of money they could afford to spend on games. For them, we have online advertising as a way of reaching everyone through Google Ads, Facebook, then influence marketing and social media, mainly for the younger generations that are really into this kind of applications. Magazines, emails and video marketing, and finally the board game conventions, which is pretty typical in this type of markets. Under this market plan strategy, we'll be starting on Strasbourg in the local stores, but we plan to expand into France and furthermore into Europe, as I will explain now in the financial analysis. We will need, let's start with the number, we will need an initial capital of 700,000 euros to start the project, and the break-even point will be achieved after year 3. The main costs are the manufacturing and marketing, assuming that the product will be run by a small team of 4 people within an established organization. To be able to obtain this money, we are looking for entrepreneurial venture capital. If a company decided to buy or to participate in this project, they must share our mission of imposing science mission to Venus. And in return, they will not only gain a financially sustainable business, but also the recognition and partnership within the renowned scientific community. Development costs are assumed to have been covered during the first 2 stages of the game development prior to the scope of the business plan. The cost for shipment, storage, and logistics are assumed to scale linearly, and the cost of manufacturing will be around 8.4 euros per unit at the start. Then when the batches are increased to 10,000 units, it will be reduced to 5.58. It is important to note that we have assumed that the company that will produce the game will have already established a physical office, legal, accounting, human resources departments. This means that apart from the copyright legal issues, we won't have to take care of any other legal departments. As we have stated before, our goal is to capture 3% of the San French market, which is valued at 80 million. Based on that, the constraints and the given analysis, we estimate to still be profitable by year 4, even if 80% of our sales is achieved. However, the sensitivity analysis shows that the downside cases present significant risk to the profitability of the project and need to be monitored. A break-even point is identified between years 2 and 3 of operation, and an equity break-even point is identified at year 4. Given the projected performance at 100%, it is then suggested that the expansion efforts will be carried after years 2. On top of that, at year 4, we will be generating a net profit of 600,000 euros. In conclusion, and given the data presented, we truly believe that we have a distinct product that separates from what there is in the market right now. And on top of that, it will be very attractive to a wide range of customers. On top of that, our financial analysis supports the claim that the product is financially sustainable. Not only that, but it will allow to expand, fostering our mission of impulses science missions to Venus. Now I give back the floor to Sasha.
Thank you, Pedro. Pedro Mena Barranco shared with us some of the elements of the business plan we have designed for a potential commercialization of the Venus educational board game we are developing. Both the board game markets and the educational game markets have been growing in the last few years, and he explained our rationale behind starting locally here in France and Europe. He also developed our go-to-market strategy, as well as our financial projections, with our goal of capturing 3% of France's serviceable available markets. Now, to shuffle things up a bit and keep you on your toes, no Poly-V questions this time, as we're transitioning to the conclusions and recommendation of our project. But do not close Poly-V yet. We do have one last question for you later. In the meantime, James Z will present the conclusions to you. James, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you again, Sasha. So, to bring everything all together, through our literature search, our team found that there were large gaps in the scientific knowledge on all aspects of Venus, due to a lack of modern exploration missions. This is in sharp contrast to the Moon and Mars, which have seen multiple missions over the last 3 decades. And even when missions have been announced for Venus, the public interest has been considerably muted. But with the possibility of a habitable zone in Venus's clouds, there's a new wave of missions that have been sparked and scheduled to launch in the late 2020s and early 2030s. Our team therefore chose to tackle the issue of a lack of public interest in Venus to support these missions. We found that board games were a unique and effective channel to engage both youth and adults, reach a broad public audience, and be present in the public awareness long after its initial release. Generating and sustaining this public interest is critical to maintaining funds and support from policymakers for future exploration missions. So recommendations for future teams to continue producing science communications content about Venus. Our team has identified a few areas to explore. Firstly, the majority of our research has an American and European focus. This was due to the ease and availability of documents from these regions, but space exploration, we know, is an international endeavor, and perspectives from all the other major space powers would really improve the ability to engage people outside of just the Western markets. As well, the topic of Venus exploration that we selected to communicate to the public was one of many possible topic areas, including astrobiology and planetary science, as well as exoplanets. Effective public engagement requires consistent release of content across many different platforms. As such, future teams have many, many more options to continue advocating for future Venus missions. In terms of the board game development itself, however, we're incredibly pleased to share that we will be continuing our work beyond the team project to bring this game into the world. So, looking at what we showed you today, you saw in the video a proof of concept version of the game, which has all of the core elements and initial graphics. We'll now be iterating through our design to continue improving the gameplay, layout, and the artwork with the goal of completing this game by the end of the summer. To facilitate all of this, we're currently seeking funds and partnerships to support the production of prototypes. And we intend to bring our game to showcase at the International Astronautical Congress occurring later this year in Baku, which Sasha will now close our presentation with. Over to you, Sasha.
Thank you, James. Maybe a bit unusual, as we said, our presentation will not end here, and I will present instead to you the next steps. But before I do, one last poll, perhaps the most important one, and I can tell you again, there's definitely no wrong answer here. Are you ready, whether you are in this room or online, to help join us to develop ISU's educational board game? Vote for as many answers as you want. This is good. This is good. We have enthusiasm here. And this is good because we will need you. We will need the help of every single one of you, and most importantly of the ISU network, as we're getting ready for the next steps. And in particular, as mentioned by James, for the 74th International Astronautical Congress in Baku in October 2023. I am very excited to share that the selection committee was unanimously so interested in our projects that they were not satisfied with the regular 10 minutes oral presentation we applied for. Instead, they invited our team to switch sessions and present in the Space Education and Outreach Symposium. We were exceptionally invited to do an oral presentation with a double time slot for a total of 25 minutes in a dedicated hands-on session where we can showcase our game, providing a unique opportunity to promote the kind of work and projects that ISU help and foster. We will not only be able to speak about our projects, but also to engage directly with individuals and organizations who may be interested in scaling up and further developing the idea. And if you did not know, this is an ideal timing, as ISU has just been accredited for their new Master of Science in Space Studies, and all eyes will be on them. Given the different setup of this session, our team is targeting to send not just one presenter, as is usually the case, but a minimum of 6 students to represent the team, with 2 students presenting on behalf of TP Venus, and a minimum of 4 other students facilitating the setup, gameplay, playtesting, and collecting feedback. In order to be ready, we have developed a detailed timeline to plan the next few months. We are currently at the beginning of May, and as you saw today in the presentation, we have finalized the gameplay, the layout, and the artwork, and we have developed a first prototype as a proof of concept to use for broader playtesting outside of our TP team. Playtesting is what is important now. We need to playtest with as many people as we can from as wide a background as is possible. One option we're currently exploring is leveraging ISU's Space Study Program, or SSP, occurring this summer in Brazil, to enroll the SSP participants to playtest the game and provide feedback for us. In addition to this, we're looking to find partners and sponsors, especially with space agencies and gaming companies, to support in the development, promotion, and potentially the production and distribution of the game. And we hope that the ISU network can provide support to help reach these potential partners. By September, we will incorporate all feedback collected over the summer and proceed to a full-scale, high-quality production of the game that we can bring to the ISC 2023 showcase in October. In parallel to the game development, some team members will, of course, be engaged with writing the paper to be published at ISC, as well as planning the hands-on session. Of note, there are 3 major milestones that we need to look into. By June 9th, we must confirm attendance to ISC 2023. To be confident, we must have a prototype game ready, as this is the case now, but we also need to have sufficient funding to send the 6 students to support the sessions. By June 14th, we must register all members of a team attending to avoid the higher fees. And finally, by September 15th, we must submit a paper to the conference. We believe that this team is well positioned to execute this timeline, And we have been planning a virtual work for the next summer as members of the team are starting their MSS23 internship. We are confident that the ISU network will help us leverage opportunities over the summer to ensure the showcase is successful, including gathering feedback from space agency outreach professionals and game designers, potentially testing the game with ISU Space Study Program this summer in Brazil, and pursuing sponsorship from space agency education and outreach programs. However, there are also roadblocks which can prevent us from accepting this opportunity. One such roadblock are the additional costs, such as the prototype development cost, which we are working to make as minimal as possible by designing our game to be easily produced. Since this is a double-length session with both an oral presentation and a hands-on session, additional team members are needed to facilitate the execution of the session. On top of this increased cost, over 1/3 of our team is 35 years or older, which, based on the ISC registration rules, disqualifies them from the student pricing and results in a 5-time greater registration fee. As such, sponsors and support for students is crucial. To conclude, we, as CP Venus, will be wrapping up this module at ISU today, but we're continuing this project, not as a TP Venus project, but as a global ISU project, as we believe public engagement is an important initiative to pursue to sustain support for Venus exploration. To ensure that this project is successful, we are currently seeking support from the ISU family in advocating for the project and help us leverage all opportunities we can reach. And it is important for us that at our presentation at ISC this fall, we use this opportunity to work with the ISU team as ambassadors to promote ISU's activity and its newly accredited program. And we definitely hope to see all of you there. This concludes this chapter for the TP Venus. I would like to end by acknowledging all of the support, the guidance, and the advice we have received from so many individuals. First and foremost, from the ISU faculty and staff, and in particular, our 2 dedicated TP interfaces, Professor Hugh Hill and Dr. Bertrand Goldman, as well as the teaching assistant, Adam Nawal, who finished his Year B thesis in December, and Victoria Rendon, who started her Year B thesis in January. I would also like to thank all the external advisors who took the time to listen to our project idea, answer our many questions, and helped us shape the Venus board game to its best possible form. And finally, I would like to personally thank all of the TP Venus team members for their dedication, hard work, and unfaltering enthusiasm for the project, as well as all the MSS23 class and the TP CSS, to whom we wish good luck for their upcoming presentation. Before starting the question period, I will ask 3 people to join us on stage. First, our TP Venus project manager, Maria Francesca Cecchi, who has been carrying this project since day 1. Then, our project controller, Kais Barmawi, who made sure that the deadlines were respected and that morale stayed high. And last but not least, our chief editor and chief game designer, Guillaume Le Carreau, who had 2 of the most difficult tasks of all, cleaning up a report and ensuring that the game is fun. Maria, Kais, and Guillaume, please join us all on stage, as well as all of the presenters. Thank you all for your time, and we will now display the board game and open the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Sasha and TP Venus. I really enjoyed that. Now, we're fortunate to be joined by our distinguished president, Professor Pascal Ehrenfront, and I'll pass the floor to her now. President.
Thank you very much. So in the meantime, I have been looking at all the scientists and responsible working on the future Venus missions, to look for your future sponsors. Yeah. So I have found a really fantastic site where you have all the people working on Envision, for instance, and so on, which I might be interested. Yeah. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's there are so many things which I consider are important. That Venus is a little bit in the shadow of Moon and Mars, and it is a very interesting object, in particular because in the recent years, and it is really very recent, it has become a very important object for comparative planetology, namely that it has a runaway greenhouse effect, and what we learn from Venus, of course, we all want to look if there is any kind of life forms on Venus as well. But I think also this aspect, you know, how has Venus developed? What happened? Why is it so hostile? And is that important for us, you know, for the development of and evolution on Earth? And so I think it is a very important thing to focus. Actually, I wrote with Hugh Hill and Gary Martin, our previous director. We wrote this team project outline, you know, for you, and we asked Jim Green, and who was still involved in the NASA mission, so to help us. And so we are very much behind that. And the public outreach is an important component. And what I really liked is also that you envisage this whole space exploration scenario between competition and what can we achieve together, what actually happens on Earth, how does it influence space exploration. So apart from all the scientific things, so I think this is very rich. And although Walter has been looking at many games, you know, which are already existing on Venus, I cannot imagine that any of the games which exist until now do have all these components. So yeah, congratulations to the team. And we have seen only a glance, and we have seen the cards, which are very personal. So this is really, really, really nice and engaging. We need so much, how do you say, power, you know, to engage the next generation, and we need everything, because as you know from my last sentence, I'm sure he's already looking at me from the back, and when we look at also at the STEM workforce and being interested, you know, in technical and nature science content, we are in a very bad shape worldwide, and that also, you know, goes on all the further subjects which we really need for our future concerning, you know, transport, AI, security, and all that. And we need to, you know, bring the people up to speed, get them engaged, so that this is not something out of this world, but it is actually a part of us. And so, well done. I don't know, I give back to the boss behind me, and thank you very much for your contribution, and we hope we learn more about it in detail. You want to? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. It was interesting. Just one information. As we saw this a little bit coming, I worked with very closely with our lawyer, Pauline, and we got yesterday a report about the IP, because you made it as a threat. Yes. So please contact her about the IP issues related to this collective work, as the lawyers call it.
We have been in touch with her today already on the IP.
Okay,
yes.
so the report was only in yesterday because it is a complex issue. So that one, and then indeed, I think as previous president and with the new president, we appreciate a lot that you're trying to find financing. With investors and not come to ISU for that, to go to ISC. However, I have to give a remark what I did also during the business plan competition. If you're going to talk with a venture capitalist or with any investor, the first thing he will do is what I did a few minutes ago, and Pascal was looking over my shoulder, so I'm going to play on my computer and see what games there are. And I found Venus Tiny Tap, which is endorsed by Science and Nature, free of charge. Venus Next, 27.5 euro. I have not heard anything about competition. That is certainly the first thing that you will have to do if you are if you're going to talk to an equity investor, is competition. Have you studied the competition? Have you studied the competition?
I'm going to be hosting this question period. So as for everyone, in case there was some issues with the microphone, the question that Professor Peters asked us is, have we looked at the competition while doing the business plan? And I will bring the microphone to our business plan specialist, Kais Bormawi, who is also the project controller. Kais?
Thank you, Sasha, and thank you, Professor, for the question. Indeed, we did an in-depth analysis of competitors, both in two sectors, and we also had it on the slides. So we did an analysis of educational games, we did an analysis of board games, and we did an analysis of educational board games, and we did include, indeed, games that are connected to Venus, but this was not only, yes, if you can look down on the screen, so this is how we divided them. Here, some of the Venus games are included, but we preferred, because the Venus games that you listed are not indeed the most famous ones. So we took the top 10 educational board games based on one of the biggest board game database in the world, boardgeek.com. Out of that, we derived our competitors' analysis. So since we believe that as a space game, we compete with other space games. We do not want to limit ourselves only to Venus, but we compete with games about Mars, games about moon exploration, and we do believe that there is a big gap that still hasn't been addressed. And these games that you listed are unfortunately not as big as, for example, a game like Terraforming Mars, which has been sold for millions of copies worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you still, guys. I appreciate your answer. I'm just a warning, as I did also the thing, you will have an investor who is not able to judge the quality of the games. So be careful. If you're talking to an investor, he cannot judge or she cannot judge how scientific the games is. And if I see something like endorsed by Science and Nature, as an investor, I would have a trust in that. So prepare yourself for that. That's my only advice. Good that you did the work, but prepare yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Peters. Professor Sun.
Thank you. Very nice presentation. But I see I have some questions. I go to the question directly. And when you design this game, and do you also make some trade-off study? For example, at this moment, they are more and more popular in the online game, like a mobile-based game, and do you think also this kind of option? And
Thank you, Professor Sun. Professor Sun asked you a question about whether we have done trade-off studies while deciding to focus on board game rather than other kind of games such as digital game or mobile game. I will pass the floor to our game designer, Guillaume Le Carour, to answer this question.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Professor, for the question. Yes. Doing a digital game was one of our first concerns, and we decided to go for the board game for two reasons. First, the skills. We do not have the skill to make a digital game. And furthermore, it's easier to make a prototype board game. It's just paper, scissors, printed pieces, so you can do it here. And the second reason is that board game is very much a social activity, and we wanted people to get face-to-face and discuss the game, discuss the challenges around the exploration of Venus.
And also a kind of commands or feedback for your future business, because I'm, for the board game, it's there, it's difficult to change, but for online game, it's easy. You can modify it, do the upgrading, or during the play the game, you also can make some additional value out of it by charging and for during the game, and to increase your power for different things. I think you know more that way than me. And the second question is that, can you give us some more detailed information about the content of your cards? Because it's directly links with your success. Or maybe you think is your IP, you don't want to talk something more, but I still need some information for the content itself.
Thank you for the question. Professor Sun's question was whether we can provide more information about the contents of the cards that we have designed. I will answer, a first pre-answer here. As mentioned by Professor Walter Peters, we currently are having discussion about IP, the intellectual property of the work. And this is one of the reasons we didn't necessarily showcase the cards too much, as the presentation is currently being broadcasted live. But in terms of the content of the cards, we have here our game designer that are selecting some of the cards that we can pass around to the faculty and to anyone in the audience who would like to look at the content and read them further. If you're okay with that answer, thank you. Yes, please, yeah.
So we're just going to take a very brief to show you, for example, a few of our cards. So for example, right now you are looking at a mission card, a technology card. Currently, this is the Magellan Orbiter. And for example, when you buy this card with the resources that are connected to knowledge and money, then you can invest this card into further advancing in the game. It's also interesting to look at our ISU player markers. And if after the presentation you're interested in testing the game, please let us know and we'll include you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Professor Nicolas Peter.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. It was entertaining, pun intended. So it's good to see that you are coming with a new idea with these games. And but I have two questions. The first one is, what's the age group? Being the father of 4, playing a lot of board games, some of those games are not so easy to play with. So what's the age band you're looking at?
I can answer that very quickly. We are targeting young adults, teenagers and young adults. This is the game that we're targeting. So around 15 years old until young adults, we're stretching that until 50, 60, because this is what we think young adults are.
Okay. So
the reason, and I will quickly take the opportunity to have the mic, there's a lot of resources towards younger children already for space exploration. And we really wanted to target that gap of teenagers and adults that may not have products targeted towards them to interest them into space exploration without them being already interested in it.
So as a parent, I'm happy because that means I won't buy the game, but they will buy the games themselves, and because for the price range, it seems okay. But now I wanted, I'm sorry to be able to spoil your fun, because for the one going to Baku, which is great for space, you might have a couple of thousand people, say 6,000, 7,000 people. At the same week, if you go to Essen, you have Spiel Essen with 150,000 people coming to the largest fair trade show for board games, with more than 600, exhibitors. So now you have to see, you send 6 to Baku, and maybe you need to send 10 to Essen. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you very much for the tips.
So, thank you so much, Professor Peter. In fact, I have 2 questions. First being, astronauts, as you know, are master communicators. Have you discussed your game with any of them?
The question that Professor Hill is asking us is, have we taken the opportunity to discuss our game with space communicators? And I will actually call one of our experts in the external relationship, Tomasz. Would you like to take this question, please? You can come up on stage. Tomasz Adash is a team member that has been in charge of reaching out to external advisors for us. Thank you, Tomasz. Come on stage.
Yes, I'm coming. I will make my...
And in case it's been a long time, the question was, have we had the opportunity to reach out to external advisors, especially science communicators, to discuss our game ideas?
So if we can go to the slide with the acknowledgement, we have shortlisted some of the people. Yes, so responding to your question, the slide of the acknowledged people, we have already contacted the people from the Great. So you see the Dr. Reina Knizia from the game industry. This is like the most important person that we saw from the game industry consultants. And from the ISA and the ESA, we were also in contact with the people from the communication department and also marketing department. The people who develop, for example, ISA, the Carbon Mission game. This is a digital game which is already commercialized. And also the people from the technical staff who worked and played Clean Space and also other games developed internally in ISA. So those people are inside this environment, historically and also presently. So the people who are developing the mark of the ISA and they're looking at how to engage for the activities like the games also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'll pass the floor to my colleague, Professor Virginia Vottering. Virginia.
Thanks, y'all. This was quite an adventure. So you proposed this game as a communication tool to teach people about Venus. How would you measure what impact it has in terms of education or policy change?
Thank you for the question, Professor Vottering. The question is about how are we going to measure the impact of the game in the interest of the population on Venus? And I will have James Z answer that question.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's actually a very good question because when we asked this to all of our colleagues and advisors in the science communication industry, that was their biggest challenge. So we were talking with, for example, ESA Academy to understand all of their initiatives that are being funded. What is their impact in boosting education or measuring the engagement in the space sector? And they struggle to do that today. In our case, this is one single piece of media. And on a global scale, you require many consistent pieces of media to actually influence people to make a change. And so we hope that this is one step towards that. The easiest metric we have that we have access to is just sales. So as we start tracking the sales, we can start seeing, does it increase people's interest, and in which case we will get more sales. And the other piece is on social media, tracking people's engagement and use of the word Venus or hashtags related to Venus. So those are the two easiest metrics that we can follow. Anything more detailed in terms of specific impacts, that is something that the whole communications industry is struggling with.
Thank you, James.
As an educator, I find this insufficient. So surely there is a way to measure if people are learning from interacting with your game.
If I may, I will take that part of the question. So James talked about the long term, how we're changing the general public. I'm understanding that your question is about the individual playing the game. How do we measure how—
You proposed this as a communication tool to teach people about Venus. How are you going to measure if you've taught them anything?
So we want the playtesting sessions to not just be people playing. These are going to be formalized playtesting sessions with questionnaires that the players will have to fill out before and after the game, both in terms of their previous knowledge on Venus, their new knowledge not just on Venus, but on how space exploration is being done, as the game uses Venus as a setup, but it really could be applied to a lot of different space missions. But we also want to have in these questionnaires questions about the gameplay. Was it fun to play? Which is actually a very hard question to answer. How do you define having fun while playing? And these are some of the questions that we have. We have looked into there's a lot of science educational board games, and they do provide some examples of questionnaires that we can use, and we're going to focus on some of these questions for the gameplay.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I think your presentation is very good. I enjoyed it. The slides are really very bright and very nice. So for me also, I think it's a bit not so clear, the methodology. So when you build game, there are steps. I don't know. But I think because making game is also like building satellite. So there must be some kind of methodology established I mean, there is I think universities have programs in game development or this kind of thing. So which one did you use?
The question asked by Professor Tejumola is, which methodology did we use to build our game? And to answer that question, I will give the mic back to Guillaume Le Carour, again, our chief game designer. Thank you, Guillaume.
Thank you, Professor, for the question.
Louder, Guillaume.
Sorry? Yep. The methodology we used is quite similar to the science methodology. We created rules from some ideas, and then we tested them. So it's observation. Then we analyzed the result, seeing if it's working or not. And then we refine the rules. So it's kind of a loop methodology. Yeah, we use that mostly. No, it's not good enough. So, yeah.
It's okay, because I mean, my question still return to what my colleague asked about how do you measure the effectiveness? Because those methodology, if you have applied a particular methodology, then the methodology, part of it will be how to test the effectiveness of the game. So, and that's, I mean, you still have to come back here, even to get funding. People will ask you, how effective is this? And yeah.
Professor Tejumola is giving us a second opportunity to answer that question. And I will give the microphone to James Z to answer this second question. Thank you, Professor.
So just to build off that answer, so the way we approach this game was from two directions. There's the top-down methodology, where we started with the initial needs from the game to educate about Venus, where we picked the different topics that we wish players to engage in and design rules that force players to interact with that topic. And then we also went from bottom up, where we selected well-known concepts within board games and well-known mechanics, so that a player approaching this game who may not be familiar with it will automatically understand how the game will be played with guides on the board meant to visually simplify the learning process. In terms of testing and iteration, there's sort of two halves for it. We focused primarily on the engagement piece. So we wanted a requirement of the game was that it could be played within 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And that was to help make sure that players would not lose engagement throughout, and especially the pacing of the game. So our focus was, if we go back to the learning, we don't have to, if we go back to the learning methodologies, trying to make sure that players are actively moving and interacting with each other and maximizing those interactions rather than sitting there and waiting. And so those were measured during the game design process to make sure that as we were testing and playing, people are always engaged, they're not being distracted. As we get further along and refining through the rules, then we can start focus on the learning aspects of it, because players are now engaged, they're ready to sit down and play for the full cycle of the game. Then we can actually measure now how much knowledge gets transferred during this process, because you can't transfer the knowledge if players are getting distracted or if something's confusing with the rules and unrelated to the science itself. So the main focus is trying to make sure that players are able to understand how the game works and play the game first before then we layer in the learning aspect.
The mic is being passed on.
So thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions and a comment. So Professor Ehrenfreund mentions the point of climate change and the importance of greenhouse effect. So I would like to ask you to be more specific than that and give us some examples of how Venus can be used as an example to the Earth. Of course, nowadays the atmospheric circumstances are very different. So what can we learn from this comparison? Can you give us a couple of examples?
Thank you. Professor Goldman is asking us if we can provide some examples about how Venus can be used to study greenhouse gases and how that parallels can be make with Earth. I will wait for one hand to raise up. And James Z is going to answer that question. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So I think in a lot of popular media we see right now, Venus is considered the hothouse example, where it's a runaway greenhouse effect, and it's the extreme case of having an atmosphere full of CO2 and the effects on a planetary surface. And so this is in a lot of communication used as the example for why we have to fight climate change, because we can see immediately the long-term effects. Whereas a lot of the communications today, you say, oh, we increase a bit of CO2. It's difficult to understand what that means for a person and what that means for society. Versus Venus, you can see directly the implications there. One of the biggest challenges here is we don't actually understand a lot of the details of how this runaway greenhouse effect started, what caused the sort of point of no return, where Venus went from a lush water-filled world into this nightmare scenario. And so that's an area of great interest for study, not just for people who study astrobiology and life, but also for planetary science and exoplanet research. But it can then be reapplied to Earth to really understand what are the mechanisms that control our climate and what are the points of no return that we have to be careful of and monitor. And so this is a great way to talk about Venus to people and understand why there's importance in sending missions, because there is research and understanding there that can be directly applied to how we manage our own environment and how we manage the climate communications we do on Earth.
Okay, interesting answer, sorry. So yeah, I think as you started your answer, how do we convince people that we have to fight climate change? It's not about, of course, going from 273 degrees to 500 degrees, Kelvin, but it's about alpha Kelvin. But still, yeah, that provides, I think, the kind of input that you said. I think that's relevant. So now in your game, how does that appear, this aspect?
The question is how in our game we are discussing the climate change and how Venus is currently having a runaway greenhouse effect. I would like to pass the mic to Kais Barmawi to answer that question.
Thank you, Professor, for your question. So one of our main resources to build missions is actually scientific knowledge. This is how we named it. So let me just find the card with which I can demonstrate. Okay, in the meantime, I hope my colleague can help me find the card that we can demonstrate. So in these cards that are very playful and useful, we have generic text that is not generic, very specific text. For example, describing the atmosphere of Venus, describing the temperature on the surface, describing what actually we know about. And some of our cards are directly related to the climate catastrophe of Venus. So maybe, for example, this is one card that we can look at. It's still, of course, in development. But fundamentally, we have included general knowledge for the mass public to understand how relevant the subject is, while playing, making it fun, but also educational.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Also, I think if I got that right, you mentioned an investment of 700K. Could you describe how you came up with that number? What's
I believe the question is about our business plan, yes, and the initial investment of 700,000 euros that is written in the business plan. And I will let Pedro Mena Barranca answer this question.
So what do you want to know exactly about the investment that we need? Where are we going to get it from, or why is that amount of money?
Why? Yeah.
Why? Well, as I stated, it depends on a definite amount of factors, starting with the marketing that we want to take into account, from the people that we want to hire, also the logistics. I think I didn't mention it on the presentation, but it's going to cost us around 10,000 euros for the batches to come from China, where we are going to manufacture them. Also, there's going to be a lot of manufacturing. At the start, there's going to be needed a lot of money because the profits won't get there until year 2 or year 4, depending on the sales that we get.
Thank you, Pedro.
All right, and finally, as a comment, as a TP interface, I can say that I enjoy working with you on that project. See how the team grabbed the topic of Venus, as you were proposed, and then made it evolved. I'm sure that some of you were quite involved with games before, but not all of you. But I believe that you all got on board eventually and become savvy with this idea, and also taking into account the faculty requirements occasionally, but also from your own initiative as well, developed a full and complete answer, including some academic points, but also all the other aspects that are needed for the game. And I think it was very nice to see you going from there 6 months ago to today and tomorrow.
Thank you, Professor. That's very nice of you.
Thank you so much, Bertrand. We have time for one final question on the part of ISU faculty member Dr. Niamh Shaw. Niamh.
Thank you. Thanks very much. That was great. Congratulations on a fantastic presentation. I'm somebody who's engaged full-time in science communication and education. I see on the ground that a lot of people make assumptions about what young people want. So I'm interested in what research you did with people who are actually your target audience, that is teens. Did you go out and ask them what's a good game and what is it about Venus that they want to know about?
Thank you, Professor. The question is, how have we contacted our target audience to ask them what they wanted to know about Venus and which vehicle would be best for them? And I will have James answer that question. James Z again for you.
Thank you. So in terms of researching how we are actually getting to this target audience, there's actually quite a large body of work available for game design because people have been designing games for that the teenage age group. And so we relied heavily first on what makes an existing game that targets that age group successful because of all the published media. And then we also have quite a few members of our team that have children who are interested in playing, so engage in them. And a lot of our members of our team are actually in our target age group. So some of our members are in their early 20s, and so this is also one of the target areas. One of the difficulties we have is actually reaching out to the exact age group of young adults and teens, mainly due to privacy and including that information. And so the ability for us to actually engage questionnaires with them is difficult. But we hope to actually conduct play testing once we have this actual prototype and produce additional copies where we can bring it to these players and test, say, within other events that are public.
Thank you, James.
Thank you so much. Time is a Guinness. We've come to a logical conclusion. Thank you so much, TP Venus. So it's now 3:30 local time. We'll take a break, 15 minutes, and following the break we will return for the second presentation of the afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And the second presentation of the afternoon will be in the part of TP Commercial Space Station. Again, you have up to 60 minutes to summarize your work, and thereafter we'll have a Q&A session lasting up to 30 minutes. Very, very, very good luck.
Thank you, Professor Hill. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. My name is Pier Francesco Chiavetta, and on behalf of our team, I invite you to join us in exploring the exciting opportunities for a commercial space station in low Earth orbit, as part of the team project assignment for the Master of Space Studies. I would like to start by presenting you with a possible future. One where commercial space operations have ventured past the boundaries of science fiction, becoming a reality. A future our whole team has dared to imagine over the past 7 months, as you will see on screen. Here, among the stars, orbiting at an altitude of approximately 400 kilometers, is the commercial space station Enterprise. The activities you will see reflect the mission statement of our team to identify the business framework for the new frontier in global and sustainable socioeconomic opportunities. These include space research, space tourism, in-space manufacturing, and the creative industries. Shortly, we will be joined by 2 spokespersons representing this conceptual commercial space station. They will walk us through the station design, its business operations, and how these activities sustain themselves. By exploring this concept, we can derive a roadmap for future business opportunities and practical recommendation for the diverse activities, demands, and possibilities aboard the commercial space station during this decade and beyond.
Hello everyone, esteemed faculty, distinguished guests, and fellow space enthusiasts. It's a great honor to introduce you to our space station. My name is Rowan Morkins O'Reilly.
And I'm Charlotte Powells, and together we are here, the spokespersons that will guide you through this hour about our activities conducting at the commercial space station. Not only is it an incredible feat of engineering, but also it offers many opportunities for activities to make it a self-sustainable business cause.
For you see, the CSS Enterprise is more than an orbital business park. It's a stepping stone for human space exploration, an evolutionary link between the modular station designs of the past, such as Tiangong, Mir, and the International Space Station, and those envisioned by futurists, such as Konstantin Tsiolkovsky and Arthur C. Clarke. It represents a milestone in the commercialization of space, and a necessary step for us to become a multi-planetary species.
But you may ask, why do we need a commercial space station in low Earth orbit, or also recalled to as LEO, at all? Why don't we just stay here on Earth and conduct the activities there? Well, first of all, having a commercial space station in low Earth orbit helps to facilitate international collaboration between government agencies, companies, research institutions, and more. This could enable the global economy and actually stimulate and fostering peace, which is a very important topic these days. Furthermore, the unique microgravity environment helps to facilitate research and experimentations that could offer unique possibilities to researchers here on Earth. For example, fundamental physics, biology, and other fields is where humanity will benefit greatly from.
Our station has now been in operation for more than a decade, and to celebrate this 10-year anniversary, we invite you to consider what makes the CSS Enterprise unique.
So now we will also go and discuss some of the assumptions. It is very important to understand where the CSS comes from. So for example, the CSS needs to be operated within the next decade to make sure that all these business activities take place. Furthermore, as you may know, we already use some of these technologies of the space sector here on Earth. So we still need to make sure that we expand this growth to the next of the stage. For example, you already use GPS to get your Google Maps and actually arrive here today. You also use memory foam for your mattresses. Furthermore, you use your laptops, the MRI for the medical centers, and even the cameras on your phones that you use daily.
So, while our station is expected to remain in low Earth orbit for a duration of at least 30 years, similar to the International Space Station, the leading CSS operator is probably going to be headquartered in the United States, but the station is going to be accessible to all of humankind, and not withheld to any country or company based on the political agendas of others. As the cost for launch is steadily decreasing over time due to the advent of reusable rockets, our stations become a beacon of equity and accessibility, and not simply a privilege for government astronauts or the extremely wealthy.
But to conduct these business activities, it is very important that all the business that we are going to achieve on the commercial space station is in line with what we expect and have the financial capabilities to actually come to our commercial space station. Later on, we will explain how we get an achievable, self-sustainable business model. Furthermore, we have assumed that the cybersecure environment is in place. With the current cyber attacks that are taking place daily, it is very important that the cybersecure environment of the station is in place. Furthermore, we assume that to develop the station, all the technology that was used has already a technology readiness level of 9. This means that it was flight proven. Furthermore, the legal and regulatory laws are already set in place and all the approvals have been acquired necessarily.
We also had the benefit of relative global economic stability during the construction phase. Standardized components and interface structures were used as part of the station's design, stimulating international and commercial collaboration. To top it all off, the governmental funding used to develop and launch the space station has not decreased over the last 10 years.
An absolute great success already. But now to achieve further, the initial business analysis to be conducted needs to be perfect. We need to be able to accomplish everything that we need to go to space already here on Earth before we launch up into space.
So let's take a closer look at some of the remarkable activities that take place aboard the CSS Enterprise. In doing so, we'll illustrate the sustainable business models behind each of these activities and what these activities mean for the future of human space exploration. It begins with the exciting field of space-based research, and for that, I'd like to invite our Director of Science, Ele, to the stage. Ele, what does space-based research look like aboard a commercial space station?
Thank you, Rowan. So, for over 20 years, the International Space Station served as an essential platform from groundbreaking experiments in fields such as biology, biotechnology, space medicine, and pharmaceutical research. Its successor, the CSS Enterprise, is proud to continue this legacy, carrying the torch of scientific advancement in space with focus on 4 core research domains. Space medicine flourishes within a dedicated module on board the station, catering the growing demand for human performance and well-being in space. Our research program encompasses 5 crucial domains: human factors and behavioral performance, exploration medical capabilities, human health and countermeasures, and research operations, integration, and space radiations. These areas of study will pave the way for sustainable, long-term space exploration, ensuring human health and safety in the cosmos, while attracting significant investment in the space sector. Life sciences research has shown a slight growth in the last years. NASA budget was already reaching $100 million in 2023 and grew up to $109 million in 2027. Focusing on key areas such as 3D cell cultures, reproduction, or understanding biological responses to microgravity, we can develop novel therapies and countermeasures for spaceflight-associated conditions, enriching our understanding of life beyond Earth and driving economic growth in this vital sector. Space pharmacology is crucial for space travel's well-being, and the market also is increasing in this decade. When operation began, NASA's Human Research Program involved and invested $200 million annually, with private companies and universities allocating millions more. The research conducted on the CSS Enterprise focuses on drug stability, on crystal growth, nano-drug delivery, and developing new treatments, as well as opportunities for the space industry. As the benefits became more apparent, investment in space pharmacology grew significantly. Finally, astrobotany. Research about astrobotany in microgravity is essential to understand plant biology and to invest in agriculture, biotechnology, and food production. It has revenues tripling from $46 million in the first year of the operation to the current figures to $140 million. By studying plant growth and development, photosynthesis, stress response, life support system, and advanced biotechnologies, we can unlock the potential of sustainable and efficient food production for space and for Earth, fueling economic growth and innovation. The CSS enterprise business model enables astronauts to conduct research, gather data, and manage operations. At the beginning, our baseline hourly rate was $10,000, and it decreased by 3% every year by technology innovation and market competition. In the realm of private company experiments, the CSS enterprise became a co-owner of many patents, generating long-term revenue, for example, as royalties, particularly from pharmaceutical research. Medical and botanical research also gave rise to spin-offs, effects that impact the global economy, such as NASA seedling growth technology and dependable biomedical devices. So by embracing these transformative research areas and the economic potential, the CSS enterprise not only ensures humanity's survival in space, but also creates a lasting impact on our Earth-bounded lives.
So when you think about a commercial space station, the first thing that often comes to mind is space tourism. We will now go live to our esteemed colleague Diego, who is in the Brazil spaceport ready before a launch.
Loud and clear, Charlotte. It's an exciting day here at the launch pad as our next group of space tourists are bound for the CSS Enterprise. And there they go. As technology advances and launch costs decrease, space tourism is on the brink of becoming a thriving industry. Access to space is becoming a reality so much more broader for the global demographics than ever before, expanding human horizons and transforming the way we perceive our place in the universe. Space tourists are essentially private-funded individuals who wish to experience the wonders of space. The training required, although comprehensive enough to ensure physical and psychological safety on board, for the participants themselves and the wider crew and operations, can be completed in much less than 1 year. Thus, the barrier to space is much easier than becoming a national astronaut, whereby applicants must pass intensive selection and fitness requirements to undergo many years of highly skilled and specialized training required for long durations residencies and skills scientific work. In determining the most suitable space tourism activities, our analysis has led us to identify 4 macro topics for space tourism activities. Firstly, training experience. For astronauts, crew, flight participants, and is a unique value proposition in and out of itself. Secondly, space leisure. This includes special events and holidays in space, microgravity sports and games, gardening, dining, stargazing, and photographing the Earth from space. Social media, of course, and engagement with followers. Many visitors to the CSS want to feel like a real astronaut and have a strong desire to actually work as amateur scientists. Finally, we're looking to offering extracurricular activities to our customers. Our target segments include high net value individuals, thrill and adventure seekers, space enthusiasts, amateurs and professional researchers, and corporate clients. Our value proposition consists of astronaut training and ticket options for space activities. Revenue streams will come from astronaut training, ticket sales, and merchandise of products. The cost structure will depend on factors like construction, operation, maintenance of the CSS, launch costs, insurance, training, and promotion. Space tourists will be charged around $25 million for the flights, potentially the $5 million mark by 2030. Space tourism will generate $1.3 billion in revenue annually. Commercial space flights and commercial space stations offer a unique platform for space tourism activities. Technological advancements and launch cost reductions are the main enablers for space tourism to become a profitable industry, contributing to the growth and advancement of the space industry and the overall economic viability of the CSS. Back to you, Charlotte. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Diego. So before we go to the next stage to talk about in-space manufacturing and servicing, it is important to understand that it's not only space tourism that's happening on commercial station. There's way more about it. So hereby I would like to introduce our esteemed colleague Manav, who will tell you more.
Thank you, Charlotte. Let's enter the CSS enterprise that currently acts as a catalyst for groundbreaking innovation, bringing tremendous advancements to both space and earthbound industries through 3D printing, optic fiber manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing, and space debris recycling. In-space 3D printing offers a wealth of opportunities, revolutionizing how we manufacture products for Earth and reducing spacecraft reliance on frequent resupply missions. In 2022, the global 3D printing market was valued at $17 billion, with an impressive projected growth rate of 23.3% from 2023 to 2030. As the trend towards low-cost satellites gains momentum, new companies are providing innovative access to space, enabling the adoption of additive manufacturing technologies to reduce cost and transform industries. As a result of producing optical fibers in space, there has been an increase in performance and efficiency. With demand rapidly outstripping supply, global optic fiber manufacturers are ramping up production significantly. Revenues have been generated through renting space on the station for concept development and through mass production. The space semiconductor market is experiencing rapid growth due to the increasing demand for space-related equipment and spacecraft. With the global space industry projected to be worth $1 trillion by 2040, the space semiconductor market is expected to reach $4.9 billion by 2027, playing a vital role in space operations for power, communication, and storage. Recycling space debris not only enhances the operational efficiency, but also promotes low Earth orbit sustainability and contributes to cost savings by reusing existing resources. The market for active space debris removal and satellite refueling are estimated to be worth $1.5 billion by 2029. By focusing on revolutionary manufacturing and servicing activities such as 3D printing, fiber optics, and semiconductors, we will be able to unlock immense growth potential within the CSS enterprise, embracing these cutting-edge technologies that shape the future of space exploration, revolutionized industries, and unleashed the boundless potential of human ingenuity. Passing over to Rowan.
Thank you, Manav. Finally, we must turn to an often overlooked but highly lucrative set of activities, those relating to the creative industries and education. And for this, I'd like to hand you over to our Director for Arts and Entertainment, Aoife.
Thank you, Rowan. Indeed, as some of this space audience might be surprised to hear, the global creative industries market is worth $2 trillion. That's over 4 times larger than the entire space industry itself, contributing 6.1% of global GDP. Our station sought to tap into this market, delving into high TRL activities as yet under or unexplored for the space environment, such as fine arts, live events, film and TV production, and STEAM education. These aim to both engage and inspire the public, as well as stimulate the low Earth orbit economy. We'll start with the example of visiting artists creating zero-gravity collections for work on the station. It's worth noting that when our station first began operations, the global art market alone was worth $65.1 billion. And fine arts tends to outperform property and even gold in terms of annual return on investment. Several funding methods are employed, such as research grants, direct sales, sales commissions, licensing and merchandise, as well as private and commercial funding. Here we examine our sales commission format in more detail. Artists spend several weeks on board, experimenting with new technologies and creating new collections of work that could only be possible in microgravity. We work closely with major galleries and major international artists who are charged up front for the costs of visiting the station. We also receive a 10% commission on sales. With 4 visiting artists per year, creating at least 10 works of art each, and selling at an average price of $1.5 million, plus additional commissions from edition prints and licensable products, we have seen over $32.4 million in annual revenues. Our music, dance, and sporting events are broadcast live from the CSS studio module. They offer audiences the opportunity to see their favorite artists and athletes in the unique environment of space. Viewable via satellite TV or internet connection, we are providing global access to space-based entertainment like never before. The revenue from this stream market includes ticketed live stream events, subscription fees, TV network deals, sponsors and advertising, as well as merchandising, licensing, and recording fees. Even starting operations with just 4 events per year, we have seen over 1 million tickets sold at an average of $50 each per event, bringing us an annual revenue of over $106 million. The studio module itself is a multi-purpose arena, filled with the latest technology for a variety of creative industries to utilize. My colleague Rowan will now provide more details about our film and television department.
Thank you, Aoife. Through a system similar to the old NASA IMAX partnership, we enable the filming of documentaries, advertisements, feature films, broadcasts, reality TV, and education material. Studios can either pay for filmmakers and actors to visit the station, or a member of crew can be hired at an hourly rate of $38,000. Both options will still require a filming lease of $5 million. With a yearly average of 2 commercials, 2 documentaries, and 1 12-day feature film shoot, the annual revenue averages at $107 million per year. This is a conservative figure, as there are far more untapped film markets seeking to use the station. Imagine, for example, the first Bollywood production to be filmed in orbit. The station also serves as a wonderful platform for STEAM education material, hosting correspondence, sponsor communicators, astronaut outreach, and even an educator in residence. Our station is also host to an innovative virtual reality platform, allowing Earth-based users to enter a communications link with a remote operated drone, very similar in operation to JAXA's INTBALL on the ISS. It facilitates virtual visits to the station and allows for direct engagements with the astronauts, and taps into markets such as education, private research, and general outreach. With premium access and over 40,000 active users and a $50 annual subscription, this platform alone generates more than $20 million per year. This station also facilitated our partnership with the International Space University. Through this virtual platform, it enables students to have virtual workshops with the astronauts. It allowed them to participate in experiments by sending their independent research projects up to the station. And more importantly, it helped pave the foundation for our ISU Chancellor Arthur C. Clarke's dream to one day come to fruition, an ISU campus with campus facilities in orbit. Now, this station is how we achieve that dream. Unfortunately, this is only a hypothetical scenario. It's an idealized possible future, one which carries all the hopes and aspirations of everyone working in the space sector. For this to succeed, we will need a sustainable business model. So, how do we make this possible?
The answer is simple. We innovate. We leverage our strengths. We differentiate ourselves from the competitors. We seize the opportunities that space presents. My name is Sterling Forbes, and today I will show you how we make the dream a reality. We are witnessing a pivotal moment in the history of space exploration, where low Earth orbit is becoming a destination for human activities and creativity. My colleagues have helped us imagine the possibilities that await us in this new frontier, the discoveries we can make, the innovations we can create, the experiences we can share. We have imagined the joy of floating in zero gravity. We have imagined the awe of seeing our planet from a new perspective and the thrill of exploring the unknown. This is the vision that drives us to build commercial space stations in low Earth orbit. These orbital outposts will be more than just platforms for science and technology. They will be destinations for explorers and pioneers. They will be hubs for culture and commerce. They will be homes for adventurers. But to realize this vision, we need to overcome some challenges. We need to find ways to make commercial space stations sustainable and profitable. We need to create a solid business model that will attract funding and customers. We need to balance affordability with quality. We need to collaborate across sectors, across disciplines, across borders. We need to leverage the positive impacts of space exploration on our society and our economy. These are not easy tasks, but they are not impossible either. We have the resources, we have the expertise, and we have the motivation. And this motivation is also shared by NASA. Over the last 2 years, they have awarded $415 million to 3 separate commercial space station projects as part of their Commercial LEO Destinations program. But you ask yourself, why is NASA so desperate to fund commercial space stations now? Well, we have the launch vehicles, we have the commercial partners, and now we have the private funding. There has been a recent surge in private investment in space. From 2014 to 2019, investment in space quintupled to a total of $9.8 billion. And just last year, despite broader market uncertainty, total space investment reached $14.5 billion. That's more than the entire total period from 2014 to 2019. Investors are beginning to realize the advantage that space has as a new business domain, and in particular, commercial space stations. As a result of this growth in innovation and investment, Morgan Stanley has predicted a tremendous market growth for the space industry, reaching over $1 trillion by 2040. These are all promising signs, but why did we choose to build a space station in low Earth orbit? Well, as we know, LEO offers many benefits in terms of resources and expertise and discoveries that we can make compared to Earth. But why not go to geostationary orbit? Why not the moon? Why not Mars? Why not deep space already? Well, there's a simple answer, and I'm sure many of you are thinking about it now. Cost. It requires less energy to reach and maintain a stable orbit in LEO. That means spacecraft to reach LEO can use less fuel. It requires smaller, lighter launch vehicles. Even reusable spaceplanes can reach LEO. Furthermore, LEO, in comparison to outer regions, is shielded by Earth's magnetic field in the Van Allen belts, providing partial protection from the harmful effects of space radiation. This can reduce the risk to astronauts, making it easier to conduct longer-term missions. As of today, almost all industry markets interested in space are focused on LEO, in addition to the acquired expertise from the last 2 decades of successful ISS operations. Using this knowledge of LEO, commercial space stations can be at the forefront of facilitating the transfer of ISS operations. The ISS has been our home for more than 2 decades, but it's cost us $150 billion and $3 billion annually just to operate. That's a third of NASA's annual budget for human spaceflight. We aim, as a part of the Commercial Space Station Consortium, to save NASA $1.8 billion annually by 2033 through operating a commercial space station. My colleagues have already identified today several promising revenue streams for commercial space stations that can recuperate some of the cost and significant investment into this project, including on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, known as OSAM, which has been demonstrated already as a viable technology on the ISS, with a CAGR of 17.3% compound annual growth rate, to approximately $7.5 billion by 2030. Other revenue streams, space tourism, offering a unique and unforgettable experience at a premium price, of course, and space-based research, which can enable novel experiments and discoveries that are not possible on Earth. As our window into the future given by my colleagues earlier have shown, commercial space stations are not only feasible, but desirable. Not only beneficial, but profitable. There are 4 primary economic challenges of a commercial space station in low Earth orbit. First, it's human operated, adding significant risk and added cost. Second, developing, constructing, and operating a commercial space station is a costly endeavor, requiring significant and sustained funding. And third, market demand. The CSS needs continued demand from on-orbit services to continue to operate. And finally, this, competition. These new space companies in the industry are already developing their own plans for a space station in low Earth orbit. The first competitor is Orbital Reef, a mixed-use business park developed in partnership with Blue Origin and Sierra Space that will offer a variety of services. Second, Axiom Space. They've already secured a contract with NASA to attach a module to the ISS, and they're going to be adding 1 module every year, adding new facilities, new ways that we can exploit low Earth orbit. Third, Starlab. This is an interesting venture. It's a joint venture between Voyager Space and NanoRax. But interestingly, their commercial partner is Hilton Hotels, one of the world's leading hospitality brands. And you ask yourself why? This is because they're adding luxury sleeping arrangements to their space station. And this is in preparation for the construction of the first artificial gravity space station, hopefully by the end of the decade. These are just some of the other examples, several others are planned, of how significant investment has already gone into making commercial space stations a reality. Each of these projects have their own unique value proposition, their own target market, their own competitive edge. Each of these projects has the potential to generate revenue from multiple sources. We're talking in-space manufacturing, space tourism, education, entertainment. But more importantly, each of these projects shares a common vision: to make space accessible and beneficial for all, to create new opportunities for innovation and collaboration, to inspire future generations of explorers and entrepreneurs. Humanity is not just building commercial space stations. We're building the future. And now I will introduce my colleague, Dimitro, to walk us through our strategic planning for the station.
Thank you, Sterling. So, commercial space station, it's a huge venture with a high cost, it's a long term. It means that we need to approach it strategically. And to do this, we employed 2 key tools, which is PESTEL analysis and SWOT. So analysis, let's start from PESTEL analysis. PESTEL stands for political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors that affect us and how we affect the world surrounding us. Let's start from political factors. Obviously, government policies affect us a lot, and they determine the funding, they set the rules, so we are heavily dependent as a new industry right now on this. Funding from the government allow us to kick off a new industry, and it's definitely an important topic. And security, last but not least, because a new big object in space with a huge like facilities and performance became a national security concern, and it also should be considered. From economical perspective, we have costs that affect us, costs both for the development and operations. We have market demand. In commercial space station, it's not a coincidence. We want to make it sustainable and profitable. It means that we need to have good enough demand for our services. And financing. Funds can come not only from governments, they can come from a private market. And the interest of private investors also a factor here. Social factors. We have a public opinion, which is actually the key to many things, because depending on public perception of commercial space station industry, government funding, policies, investors, workforce, and customers depend. So we definitely need to care about this. Demographic and distribution of wealth are important as well, because they determine how our client is going to look like, who is going to pay for this, who is going to be our workforce, and where we'll be located. So all these factors are important. From a technological standpoint, the main thing is technological advancement. So technology readiness level for all tech we use should be high enough, should be 9 to be fully deployed in space and used. And reliability, as we have humans in this station, we need to be sure that it's safe enough. From environmental perspective, we have two major concerns. The main one is space debris. We need to take care of the space environment and make sure that we don't produce a lot of debris after our operations. And radiation. Radiation exposure for humans on board, for the crew, is definitely an important factor. Legal topics are unclear regulations. Currently, we operate in unclear regulation environment. We don't know what's going to be in future and how space stations is going to be regulated. That's why it and liability and how we address edge cases like damage, death, or injury are also crucial. Talking about SWOT analysis, which stands for our strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. Our main strengths are strong technical capacity and tier level. Like, we know how to do the stuff thanks to the ISS era. The second thing, it's a growing demand. We know that International Space Station is overbooked with requests, and we definitely can enjoy part of this request as a commercial industry, and also we expect it to grow. Experienced workforce, agencies, companies, partners, universities has enough experience and enough of people who are ready to jump in on such project. And government incentives, it's obviously a strength that we enjoy it now, and it allows us to kick off the industry of space commercial space stations. Talking about weaknesses, the main problem is a high cost. It's just very expensive, and obviously it's a problem for a new venture. The second is regulatory barriers. As we don't know what regulations are going to be, it's even barrier now, but new barriers may appear in the future, and it's a weakness of such a project. Environmental risks that I mentioned, as the space debris or radiation, is also a weakness, and dependence on the government and political situation. Today we enjoy support of the government, but we don't know what is going to be in the future. And to be sustainable on a long-term level, on a decades level, we need to be sure that our operations will continue no matter what. Talking about threats, we have a problem with regulations. It's definitely a problem, and it needs to be addressed, and it's a threat that we experience. And economic downturns, if things go wrong, if economics go down, if the access to finance is going to change, it's obviously going to be a problem. We're going to have less financing. And opportunities. Currently, one of opportunities is available government funding. This should be used and utilized properly. Second, it's interest from private investors. As my colleagues said, space investments are a hot topic right now, and we definitely need to use this opportunity and this momentum. And high interest of a public and positive image, which is also very, very helpful. To be an effective business venture, we need to be balanced. That's why we need to conduct certain trade-offs. We identified 4 areas for trade-offs. The main one is the cost trade-offs, how we're going to find a balance between our revenues and our spendings. It's an important topic for any space commercial project. Risks, how we're going to mitigate risks, how we're going to balance risk with the crew that we have, but at the same time, don't overreact and be reasonable in our actions. The third trade-off is the performance, especially in terms of which facilities are we going to bring to a space station. Are we going to put a hotel and a space manufacturing on the same facility or not? So all these trade-offs need to be considered. And time, which is extremely important, as we have a time to market and we need to act right now. What is the balance between time that we spend to develop it and time that each space station will be on orbit? I would like to invite my colleague Alex to give you more information regarding financial part of the commercial space stations.
Thank you, Dimitro. So, in order to build our business and funding model, we have evaluated the potential business opportunities available to us. These activities that will be conducted on board of the CSS enterprise need to be selected with regard to the technology readiness level. to assess the maturity and therefore the probability of return. In economy and finance, there is always a risk trade-off to be met. It's an investment principle that indicates that the higher the risk, the higher the potential of reward. But in the case of commercial space station, it is not possible to take all the risk, especially because of the human presence on board. The most promising business opportunities we have identified appears to be space tourism, with an annual expected revenue of $1.3 billion, followed by in-space manufacturing, creative industries and education, space-based research, and finally, astronaut training. Regarding the technology readiness level of those activities, any activity involving humans will require a minimum TRL of 9. However, if it is a demonstration model, it will require a minimum technology readiness level of 7 and won't be allowed to be used in operation, but only as an experiment. It is very important to manage the potential interactions or conflicts between the different systems or activities in order to prevent dangerous issues that may affect human spaceflight. This is why we'll be following extensive safety protocol. All these activities conducted on board will have one objective for us: to generate enough revenues to exceed the operational and construction cost of the CSS enterprise, and in order to generate profit. We estimate the building cost of the station at $1.5 billion and operational annual cost at $2 billion. LEO is more than just a destination. It's a resource, a market, an opportunity. Microgravity and vacuum conditions that enables new scientific and technological breakthrough, the resources. Growing demand from academia, tourism, manufacturing, entertainment, and education, the market. New value proposition, new business models, new partnerships that can transform the space economy, the opportunity. That is why we have developed an integrated business model for the CSS enterprise. Our station is a modular platform that can expand to host multiple tenants and users with different needs and expectations. It provides state-of-the-art facilities and technologies for conducting space-based activities, such as research and development, manufacturing, testing, and demonstration. By leveraging its unique location and capabilities, CSS Enterprise will also offer in-space tourism services, generating significant additional revenue. We also have considered a competitive cost structure that can attract customers from various segments and regions. Our cost structure consists of 4 main components: launch cost, station cost, operation cost, and maintenance cost. Launch costs are the expenses associated with transporting the station modules and payloads into LEO using reusable rockets. Station costs are the ones related to the design, development, and assembly of the station modules and system. Operational costs are the expenses incurred by running the station on a daily basis, such as power generation, communication, logistics, and security. Finally, maintenance costs are the expenses required to keep the station in a good condition, such as the repairs, upgrades, and replacements. Nevertheless, we are confident that our diversified revenue stream and variety of interested customer segments included in our business model will offset this cost. CSS Enterprise is designed to be commercially viable and sustainable. It has a flexible revenue stream model that can adapt to the changing market condition and to customer preferences. And it has a strong value proposition that can create positive impact for society and for the environment. As you may know, funding is one of the biggest challenges and risks for any space project, especially for commercial space station. The upfront costs are high, the returns are uncertain, and the competition is strong. That is why we have developed an extensive funding model that can reduce our financial burden, increase our revenue potential, and leverage our strategic partnerships. Our funding model consists of 4 main sources: private investors, space station clients, public funders, and end users. We have balanced our funding model by diversifying our sources and aligning our interests. First, we diversify our sources by seeking funds from different sectors and regions, that have different motivations and expectations. This way, we can reduce our dependency on any single source and increase our resilience to market fluctuations and policy changes. Second, we align our interests by ensuring that our funders share our vision and have a stake in our success by seeking funding from our potential future clients. This way, we can create mutually beneficial outcomes where we can deliver value to our funders and receive feedback and support from them. Our funding model is not only a financial tool, it's a strategic asset. It allows us to secure the resources we need to launch and operate our space station. It also enables us to build and maintain strong relationships with our key partners who can help us achieve our goal and overcome our challenges. As you may know, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Environmental concerns include the company's environmental impacts, such as greenhouse gas emissions and waste management. Social consideration encompass a company relationship with its employees, customers, and wider community. Governance refers to a company's leadership and management practices, including transparency, accountability, and responsible decision-making. Investors and stakeholders often use ESG ratings to evaluate the sustainability and ethical impact of an organization or project. It is also a key indicator of success. When the companies do ESG well, reputation and brand image are preserved, operating efficiency is improved, and better decision-making processes are implemented. The thorough ESG evaluation process means the company is more risk-averse and therefore safer to invest in. You can see our ESG consideration on the screen behind me. I will now walk through how we plan to address this consideration through our ESG roadmap, which consists of 3 stages: compliance, development, and integration. The first stage is compliance. This is a stage where we ensure that we comply with all relevant laws, regulations, and standards that apply to our space station project. Also, not yet compulsory, we choose to adopt the Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, the Global Reporting Initiative Standards, and apply for the Space Sustainability Rating for specific mission. The second stage is development. This is a stage where we incorporate our ESG objectives into our organizational culture and value. The third stage is integration, which focuses on long-term strategy. We have been taking into account global risks such as national and international policy and geopolitical factors related to ESG that encompass the launch and lifetime operation of the CSS. For example, unlike many international agreements such as the Outer Space Treaty, the Paris Agreement on net zero emission is legally binding. Our CSS align with these policies and prepared to meet these challenges form parts of this long-term ESG integration strategy. This is also the stage where we leverage ESG as a strategic advantage and a source of innovation for developing new technologies or solutions that can improve space safety, security, and sustainability. This means that we use ESG as a driver for creating new value proposition, new business models, and new partnerships that can enhance our competitiveness and impact. Our ESG roadmap is not only a plan, it's also a commitment. It reflects our commitment to be responsible, ethical, and innovative actors in the space domain. I will now let the floor to Stelling so he can give you a conclusive thought.
Thank you, Alex. So, the space industry is at an ideal stage of growth and innovation to support the vision of creating a permanent commercial human presence in space through technical and financial collaboration. Support for the missions of expanding our horizons and pushing our boundaries. Support for the benefits that space can bring to our society and our economy. Yes, legal challenges are required. Yes, significant learning and adaptation is required. Yes, investment is required. But when you invest in commercial space stations, you're not just investing in infrastructure. You're investing in a more sustainable and prosperous future for humanity. And I will now hand the floor over to Maria to walk us through some of our recommendations for commercial space station operators.
Thank you, Stirling. In order to make the CSS a reality, we have identified key recommendations in three essential areas: operational, technical, and financial. For the operational aspect, our recommendations aim to streamline astronaut selection, expand the user base, and standardize the space station's operations. We propose a standardized astronaut training and selection process that ensures equal opportunities while providing a common knowledge base for space tourists. The approach will create a smooth and safe experience for everyone involved. We also emphasize the importance of marketing to unknown users and industries. By reaching out to potential clients who may not be yet aware of the opportunities a commercial space station offers, we can expand our user base and make the space station more economically viable. Our technical recommendations focus on rapid and cost-effective modular expansion, as well as optimizing active debris removal. This approach will enable the space station to grow and adapt to changing market conditions while addressing the critical issue of space debris, ensuring a safe and sustainable environment in LEO. Financial recommendations revolve around a well-planned funding strategy for the commercial space station, ensuring its long-term success. By utilizing a variety of funding sources, such as NASA's LEO Commercial Destination Program, private investors, corporate partnerships, and even crowdfunding, we can secure the necessary capital for this ambitious project. To engage new and non-users and industries, we introduce the concept of the Space Mission Toolbox, an online platform that guides potential clients in understanding the costs, requirements, and opportunities for working on a commercial space station. The toolbox offers various features, including an open-source industrial design build feature, icon registration, roadmap, templates, educational tools, consortium germination, and presentation booking. By promoting the toolbox widely and making it accessible to the public, we aim to involve more people in space station activities, creating an inclusive and engaging environment for space exploration. This approach will help us reach untapped markets and make the commercial space station more accessible to a diverse audience. In addition to these recommendations, we advocate for the open sourcing of medical research data. By sharing information about the effects of space on the human body, we can ensure a higher level of information to the spaceflight participants and contribute to a broader understanding of human health in space. In conclusion, by following these recommendations, we can make a CSS in LEO successfully and also set the stage for an array of future opportunities and innovations. Up until now, we have mostly been focusing on the first 10 years of our station's operational lifetime. It is time to think about the future, and for this, I will hand you back to my colleague, Rowan.
Thank you, Mireia. This next section focuses on all the potential business opportunities that may only be possible after the first 10 years of operation, whether it be due to low TRL or unexisting markets. Now, one thing that's crucial to stress is the adaptability of our space station. The CSS Enterprise was not designed with a final structure in mind. Rather, it was designed to be modular and flexible to respond to market and user needs. You might remember during our hypothetical scenario that during the selection process, extravehicular activities were identified as among the most profitable space tourism opportunities. However, professional astronauts will often need to spend several years training to perform an EVA, and spaceflight participants may be unwilling or unable to undergo such extensive training. In the future, a series of less complex and cost-effective EVA suits may be available for visitors to use. such as hard suits operating at 14.7 psi, or zero pre-breathe EVA suits operating at 8.3 psi. Now, these rigid spacesuits would restrict the wearer's mobility, which would be an impediment for professional astronauts, but would also enable recreational spacewalks for station visitors. One concept envisions spacewalkers tethered to the station infrastructure. Another envisions a legless, rigid pressure suit, similar to those conceptualized by Arthur C. Clarke in the 1950s. Another concept posits how the CSS Enterprise could serve as a transit hub, allowing spacecraft to dock and astronauts to transfer between a variety of space destinations, be it other orbital infrastructure or spacecraft bound for the Earth and the Moon and beyond. As an orbital spaceport, our station would act as a staging post and supply depot. Standard interfaces, such as an international docking adapter, would allow various spacecraft to dock and payloads to be tugged between different orbital altitudes, lowering operational costs and allowing for on-orbit refueling. It would need to meet several legal considerations, such as collaboration with the International Telecommunications Union and the establishment of a new international intergovernmental entity to govern spaceport infrastructure. But if successful, the CSS Enterprise would operate in much the same way an airport operates on Earth. Another future opportunity sees the installation of a space medical center, providing emergency care and medical research for the CSS personnel. A space med biotech lab would serve as a versatile, multi-purpose laboratory focusing on clinical research and new technology. The lab could be equipped for physiological, cellular, or subcellular investigations, and the datasets generated by the SMBL research would allow for future spin-offs that tackle sustainable development goals. As the CSS Enterprise grows larger, our station could also facilitate a large-scale observatory for amateur and professional astronomers. Facing away from the Earth, it would effectively act as a planetarium and also serve as an astronomical research platform. Now, the aperture of this telescope could potentially be more than double the size of the Hubble, while advanced stabilization methods would need to compensate for station movement and vibration. We estimate that such a facility could rake in an annual revenue of $120 million per year from visitors and scientific applications. Finally, artificial gravity is a concept that we could one day explore on the CSS Enterprise. A small-scale experimental artificial gravity wheel, similar to the ISS Nautilus X concept, could be attached to the station. It allowed for astronauts and investors to investigate the feasibility of such a system for long-duration missions or large-scale future stations, and help reduce the dangerous effects of long-term exposure to microgravity on physiological functions in the human body. Now, the level of flexibility required to adapt to these future opportunities may only be possible aboard a commercial space station, whose final structural design is not bound to that of any national space strategy. Our orbital business park would occupy a unique position. It's a central hub for LEO operations and a staging point for other space missions, similar in many ways to those stations dreamt up by futurists like Arthur C. Clarke all those years ago. So I want to take you back to the hypothetical concept we spoke about and the ISU facilities in orbit. And just know that floating above the Earth, somewhere in this international interdisciplinary environment, may we one day see Arthur C. Clarke's dream of an ISU university campus in orbit come to fruition. We now come to the conclusion of our presentation, and for this, I'll hand the floor over to our two project managers, Charlotte and Pier Francesco.
So during this hour, our multidisciplinary team has shared with you a future for a self-sustainable commercial space station in low Earth orbit. We examined 4 groundbreaking revenue-generating activities, such as space tourism, in-space manufacturing, space-based science, and creative industries and education. Our analysis unveils a universe of opportunities for private space companies and investors through the enterprise. Yet, this voyage, as mentioned, is not without challenge. We have roughly estimated that the operations of a commercial space station will cost about $2.2 billion per year. To boldly advance, a strategic and proactive approach to regulatory compliance, operational cost management, and market demand is vital. Collaboration between all the different countries and nations is needed to sustain this.
Before concluding, we would like to share with you the words of Norman Cousins, spoken during a NASA symposium in 1976. To be able to rise from Earth and from a station in outer space, to contemplate the gift of life unencumbered by proximity, to be able to meditate on journeying through an infinity of galaxies and enlarge the human horizon, to offer proof that technology is subordinate to human imagination. We went to orbit not because of our technology, but because of our imagination. I would like to thank my colleagues for presenting and the audience here in Strasbourg and online for listening today. I would also like to thank the faculty of ISU and especially our advisors, Prof. Virginia Watering, Prof. Gonglin-san, and Dr. Taiwo Tejumola, and our teaching assistants, Stefania Turik, as well as all the people from the space agencies and the industry that gave us invaluable insights and suggestions. Finally, I would like to thank our whole team who made an amazing job in delivering this project. And I invite all the presenters back on stage, and we are now ready to answer your questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, TP Commercial Space Station. Very, very interesting work. At this point, may I pass the floor to our president.
There's still some, oh yeah, you're all on the side. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. You know, the topic is extremely timely, and you have looked at many different aspects, and we have also, you know, experts in the faculty on this very particular topic. So you also know that we are part of Orbital Reef. ISU is one of the universities, or in the university consortium which advises Orbital Reef. And thank you very much for all the different things. It's a lot to digest, in particular all the things. I have three little comments because I have done a lot of experiments on the International Space Station. Right now, we are still in this mode where we are really putting science as number one, you know, for going into low Earth orbit. And in many of your slides, it was just jumping directly to space tourism and a lot of other things. And I think it will be a stepwise approach because we are more or less leveling off the International Space Station, which is concentrated on research, and finding market cases is really the big trigger. And the last thing what I wrote down was the your case, of course, of looking at the environment and ESG. I think it's important to make a case about that. A lot of people do not understand what you could make on such a low Earth orbit station, you know, back for Earth. That's, I think, it's a crucial thing. I think that a lot of people will be very happy. A lot of even the people which you mentioned in detail, all the organizations which are just right now working, you know, on their models. Probably not all of them are gonna make it. Yeah, we have a lot of different, and we have also smaller companies. But what is really happening when the space station is deorbited? What will be there? We don't know yet. And your topic and your work certainly will be of a lot of interest for the people which are working on this solution because we have to be there in 2030. We don't want to, you said, why are we not going directly to Moon? We do not want to leave low Earth orbit. Yeah, and that is a really important thing. Thank you very much for all your work. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in the results and what.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, very interesting. Me personally was impressed also when I read it about your vision. Because and this is linked to my question, by the way, because you need a vision for the next steps. The economist in me is a bit worried about one thing. You have a cost of $2.25 billion the first years, but you all know that cost will go up. You have you're balancing that with $1.3 billion space tourism, so that's a big part. And now here is the bad news: that will go down. Because the space tourist number 3000 is not going to pay the same price as the space tourist number 3. And you only have a limited capacity of space tourists on board. So here, for the economist, I personally would have an answer, but I would like to have your answer. How are you going to deal with this? Going cost and reducing income over the next 10 years. You always said, if I only look at the next 10 years sustainable, I have my doubts about your figures that they will be valid in a few years still. I accept your assumptions, they are good, they're well made, I accept them. I only am talking about the timeline here. What is going to happen after 5 years, after 6 years, after 7 years?
Thank you, Professor, for the question. For the question time, our chairman is going to be our colleague, Sterling Forbes, so I leave the floor to him, and he's going to direct your question to one of our team members.
Thank you, Pierre. I would actually like to take this question myself, because during our research, we've decided that with a commercial space station, in fact, the cost of operations will not go up, but will go down. And that the revenue that we'll generate from space tourism will not go down, but will go up. We reached this through two considerations. The first, reduction of cost. Launch vehicles are becoming, especially with Starship, increasingly reusable, lower cost to orbit. And we believe that with this expansion of the space launch vehicle market, that we'll be able to make space ever more accessible. In fact, we believe that by the end of the decade, we'll be able to reduce the cost of launching someone to space by tenfold. So we have high hopes that the operational cost of operating the space station, which is primarily we found in actually launching things to the station, keeping it supplied, we actually found this operational cost to be going down. With regards to your point about revenue with tourism, yes, of course, the first space tourist will pay a lot more than the last space tourist, or the 50th space tourist, let's say. But what we found is that with this reduction in cost, we also have an increase in tourists coming to the station. We have the construction of artificial gravity stations, which we're looking at potentially in late 2030 from Vast Aerospace, which are pursuing it, from Starlab and Voyager Space. These will accommodate potentially up to 350 space tourists on board. So at the same time as the cost that we're charging per ticket for tourists will go down, the amount of tourists will be going up. So we hope to continue our revenue stream this way.
Okay, with a bit of skepticism, I accept your answer, Sterling. Most of the economists, there is something called the Odyssey in psychology. The cost will go down enormously, much more than, I think, in my personal opinion. My answer would rather be, you gave it yourself in the presentation, every PLC, product life cycle, is going down after a while. I would recommend that you regularly look at new PLCs. That you're not going to say, for the next 10 years, I'm happy with my 1.3 billion from thing. I would recommend that regularly you make sure that there's a new product going to go up. Because other products may go up, like space manufacturing. But
absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
You accept your thing. I just want to make you aware about the timeline. Not only look at year one cost and things.
Yes. As part of our timeline as well in the longer term, we're increasingly relying upon commercial partners and public-private partnerships as well to shoulder some of this cost.
And the maintenance cost of a station, I have some experience with.
Yes.
Watch out.
I
know the yearly maintenance cost of the Mir station the first 2-3 years, and I also know it after 10 years. And we are talking about an exponential function.
Costly endeavor.
At a certain moment, you will have to have a big crew on board to do the maintenance, which are going to take money away from your space tourists. But okay.
That's true.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Peters. Dr. Goldman.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. So, which my notes are. You mentioned crystallography in the context of pharmacology, but not so much in terms of metallurgy, I believe, neither in your report. Can you expand on this? What are the prospects for profit or experiments regarding crystallography and metallurgy?
Okay, so can you just repeat it once again so I can just get the clarity of the question?
I think there are benefits to conduct experiments regarding metallurgy, especially compound in space. But you didn't mention it at all, I believe.
So there are certain aspects which we've touched upon in semiconductor manufacturing as well as in optic fibers. So there has been research in the production of like carbon silicate as well as like nitrates as well. And this research has been going on in the context of semiconductors as well as while we're manufacturing optic fibers, there is Zeblan, which has already been proven to be better made in space due to the presence of microgravity. And they've been tested on parabolic flights as well as on ISS through Fab Lab. And also we have the production of bioproducts, which is constructing an organ or like special tissues on space. So this research has already been done. And with this space station, we tried to move it forward in producing a more sustainable and economic benefit of that.
All right, thanks. Is there anything to learn from what from zero-G flights that are taking place now? That's, I guess, a business model. Maybe it's very different, but still there are experiments going on. I believe there is a bit of a market. Did you conduct a study of that, I presume?
Yes, so indeed with zero-G you can offer different experimentations for people who want to get an initial investigation of their experiment before they get it to the ISS or the commercial space station. Because a commercial of a zero-G flight is only for a few seconds and you need to repeat it a lot of times, so it doesn't provide that much data. But it does provide the data for an initial investigation. So it is a stepping stone as how we see it. But there's also more accessibility to doing a zero-G flight. So we always recommend that first, when you do an experiment, you first do it with a zero-G flight, and then you actually bring it to space, so that you are better prepared for what to expect in space.
All right, thanks. And maybe last question, thanks for your attention regarding ESG, as Professor Ehrenfreund was also mentioning. What is your feeling regarding your future compliance when it comes to reduction of GHG emissions?
Thank you for your question. I'd like to call Diego to the stage to answer our ESG considerations.
Hi, Professor. Thank you very much for the question. We do aim a lot to improve our quality and the well-being of the environment, especially because we understand that space industries do create a lot of emissions. So the idea is that we're going to make sure that every single time that we're sending someone to space, or we're, let's say, or bringing someone or supplying or anything, we're making sure that we take those into considerations. We're trying to introduce like biofuels and make sure they're greener and they create less impact into the environment, although we understand that this industry is a major producer of emissions. So since it is part of our nature, every single time that we're assessing and evaluating activity, we're going to take this into consideration and make sure that our activity makes sense in not impacting the environment and the local communities. That's our plan so far, but it is case by case and we need to analyze every single time.
Just a physics question, if I may. Could you please go to slide number 39, please?
39.
What do you mean by radiation in this context? Solar radiation? Do you mean, yes?
Thank you for that question. I'd like to hand over to Dimitro, who created our pestle analysis score.
Yeah, so as an environmental factor here that affect our operations, we consider radiation exposure that is like, that are affected by humans. So all kind of radiation is considered there, like solar radiation, like electrocosmic rays, and others. So anything that can hurt crew is under environmental consideration in this perspective.
Okay, so you considered cosmic radiation?
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay, probably galactic mostly?
Like,
okay.
Yes, all types of that, yeah, because like they all in one or another way can be a security risk for a crew.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you so much. Professor Sun.
Thank you. And a very nice presentation, full coverage for all the disciplinaries you learned from ISU. But I still have some questions. First, maybe you switch to page 34.
34.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, I also teach engineering, and from this picture you can see this really looks like a space like a satellite. And for the human spaceflight, you need some radiators, and for the for the environmental control and life support system. And also from this slide, I want to know how about the size of your station, about total mass, the size, because you mentioned a lot of activities. I don't know whether you can host it. Also links with the business issues. All the cost is links with size. Like if you want to buy a one-room apartment or buy a villa, it's a totally different case.
Thank you for your question. Just to address your first consideration about the design of the station, it wasn't in our scope to design a complete engineering model of a station, but we designed this using Midjourney, which is an AI art software, just to give you a sense of what a future commercial space station would look like, not necessarily an accurate engineering model. We did study other models that have been designed, for example, Orbital Reef, into how the station will be designed. But for the production of this image, it was mainly to give the audience a sense of the future. And for the second part, I'll hand this over to my colleague, Rowan, of the question.
Indeed. Just as Sterling said, when we were conceptualizing the station, we decided we wouldn't exactly go for a fixed structure in mind, because whatever would be put out there would still have to be flexible and would have to adapt to market and user needs anyway. If there is going to be something along the lines of a spaceport or a medical center, that's another module that you have to plan for in the long term, and it would be quite dangerous for us to assume that there's going to be a final design in the 2040s and just put that on screen at the moment. So when it came to making an artistic representation of the station, there was a couple of things to consider: a studio module, a space hotel, a science research lab, and an in-space manufacturing lab. Is this the end result? Is this engineering sound? Of course not. It's an artistic representation for this hypothetical future. More research is needed to know the engineering requirements to make these all possible. Is it possible, for example, to have an in-space manufacturing lab inside the station itself? Or does it need to be in a separate spacecraft, another bit of infrastructure floating at a similar or orbital altitude where transfer would be negligible? We call this the string of pearls concept. These engineering considerations will need to be made when taking this proposal forward. But for the time being, when we're talking about the onboard activities and is the model sustainable, we decided to simply go with a basic artistic representation showing off the different activities that could be done. Because at the end of the day, they're the backbone of our sustainable business model. Thank you for your question.
And for this one, I just give you a recommendation. Maybe if you want to present in other different event and make, the calculation a kind of closed loop, starting down to, we don't say down to Earth, we down to the station, and then make the explanation for all the numbers. And this is first issue. The second one, sorry, we also had a kind of assignment before, and for your presentation, I see that you placed the company in United States. How you could keep the independence for this company, for operation in the States, and what's your trade-off for the headquarters selection?
Well, our decision to base it in the United States came from regulation, and so I'd like to call Laura onto the stage for this question.
Thank you very much, Professor Sun, for your question. As Sterling introduced, this was mainly a regulatory choice. So we assume that the United States would be a good choice at the moment because there are 4 current studies on possible commercial space station. And of course, the legal, regulatory, policy, and even economic side are already being introduced, taken into account, and being developed. So the main headquarters would, of course, at the moment be in the United States. This doesn't mean, of course, that it can happen any other place on Earth. However, the second, let's say the second fold of this question is, of course, also because we needed to read ourselves the regulations. And for us to do so, we couldn't, or at least in my case, I couldn't read in Chinese. So some countries, for example, China, for example, Russia, for example, languages that we don't speak in our group, were already discarded. Yes, of course. So let's say a deeper explanation to this is that at the start of 2023, so for example, it happened once in January and at the second time in February, there were two consortium and two symposia for private sectors from people in Axiom, Northrop Grumman, Starlab, and Orbital Reef meeting up for pushing for policy changes. So the National Space Council, which talks constantly to the White House, was considering already policy changes for new commercial space stations to be included in their agendas. And this is because at the moment, no authority in the world is able to actually make this operational. So according to the Outer Space Treaty, Article 6 of the Outer Space Treaty requires an authority, a national authority, for this to happen, to take charge of continuous monitoring of such activities from a commercial perspective. So it's happening from a public perspective, and so is the example of the ISS with the ISS agreement. However, it's not happening at the private sector. And in the US, they are considering this. So the Federal Administration, the Federal Aviation Administration is already pushing to have this authority themselves. And this is why we also push for the US as our assumption location for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was a good presentation. I have one comment echoing a bit what just Gongling mentioned. With the acronym you are using in the space sector, it means it points towards a different space station, especially if you use it in English, CSS, look at it, the way it's used, it's the C doesn't mean commercial. So that one thing. I wanted also to make a comment of the design of the space station you have. Looks like in Captain Future, the Comet vehicle, which is good. But now the real question is, you focused on your benchmark, on your analysis on 4 companies. But what about VAST and the module, the plan they have, and starting with Heaven 1? How does it fit time-wise, and also with the lack of, since they go private, and a different design?
Yeah. So VAST Aerospace is a very interesting one, because they announced their plans for a artificial gravity station, which is very exciting. But they announced it right at the end of our report. So we had little time to factor that into our report, but we had been considering the prospects of artificial gravity as a longer term prospect for our station, because to reduce the effects of dangerous effects of microgravity over the long term on the human body is one of the largest challenges of operating a commercial space station in the long term. So of course, artificial gravity is something that I think every commercial space station provider aspires to. When we were conducting our interviews within the space industry, people were saying, if we can get artificial gravity, it'll be fantastic. It will solve so many problems. However, there are some technical challenges that need to be worked out, but we hope that VAST manages to solve some of these, as well as Starlab and Voyager Space. But in terms of the time frame with VAST, it's interesting they're trying to put up a module 2025, if I'm correct, their first module, which is a very ambitious time frame for that. I mean, we wish them all the success. We hope that commercial space stations become operational as soon as possible. And based on our research, it is possible for them to launch a module by 2025, we think. I mean, Axiom Space is launching their module to ISS soon. So yes, we wish them the best of success, but in terms of incorporating it into the report, it was just that little bit too late.
Captain Future solved the issues of artificial gravity.
So thank you all for your very hard work. I have what might turn out to be a series of questions. We'll see how this goes. So this is, as Walter pointed out, going to require some maintenance over time to keep it running properly, right? So how much staff do you envision needing at the beginning and to support various modules that might be added for specific needs?
Well, I'd like to bring Mustafa onto the stage to answer this particular question.
Thank you, Professor, for the question. When we started the discussion, it was based on we will have 10 people on board when we start operating. And slowly as the station grows, because it is a modular station, we can have more people coming in. So as the number of tourists increase, the staff can increase. So the first assumption was that out of the 10 people who are there on board in the first year of operation, it could be, say, 3 tourists, 3 people working on the science lab, 2 in the manufacturing lab, and 2 for maintenance. So there will be maintenance for the entire station, and then this number grows as the station becomes bigger, since it is modular.
So what would the costs be of keeping the staff there, and would they be staying for extended periods of time or doing short rotations? How would you handle this?
In our assumptions, we had taken that they might stay for 3 to 6 months, and they will cycle down when the tourists go down. The staff can go down and new staff can come up. But the researchers might be staying for more time.
This sounds like you would need an infrastructure on the ground to train all of these staff. You would clearly require a lot more people than are in orbit at any one time. Were the costs associated with this taken into account?
Yes, the costs were taken into account, and we have a section on the report. Maybe Laura can highlight more.
So thank you very much for your question. In terms of training, we have been thinking of this very carefully, not so much from a cost perspective, but rather from an operational one. So we have been considering partnership, as it has been introduced by my colleagues, in terms of in which facilities can we make sure that training is happening, and at the same time there's this change in staff, as Mustafa was mentioning. So this is already been taken into account, and it's very developed in the report.
Okay. I guess I am still not convinced that your plan tells us that you are going to generate enough money to support yourselves. I feel like you would be heavily reliant on perhaps government funding if this were to work at all. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
I think we would all agree that government funding will form a large part of shouldering the initial cost.
Would you care to make a guess about the proportion of government funding you would need in the early years?
Would we? I think it's a dangerous assumption to make. I think different commercial space station companies are operating on different cost models. So, we have Orbital Reef, which does have some government partnership, and you have particularly Axiom Space. It has heavy government partnership and subsidies. I mean, NASA's Commercial LEO Destinations program is subsidizing stations as well. I think in terms of shouldering the cost and our own revenue making up the cost, we would probably go for about 50-50 to start with, I would reckon, because we aim to generate a significant revenue, but we recognize at this point that we need public-private partnerships and significant external funding, whether it be public or private, to shoulder this cost, because the operational costs are high. But we are hopeful that we'll be able to slowly lessen this, because our objective is to transition from the ISS and reduce the cost to NASA and to other space agencies that are currently shouldering the burden of the ISS.
And that's a great idea, but the thing that you're proposing here looks mostly like a fun park for the wealthy. So asking the taxpayers of the world to support it, that's a big request.
Yes, but our ambition as a station is to make space more accessible, and we have to start somewhere. I think to use a metaphor from history, the history of flight was pretty much started primarily from warfare, but also from very rich tourists who were taking the planes. And gradually, as planes got cheaper and more accessible, more people, and you led to mass tourism, where almost everyone can buy a flight nowadays. So we believe that we have to start somewhere with space tourism, making space more accessible. And we hope that, potentially by the end of the 2040s or by the end of the 2050s, we'll be able to make the cost of a ticket to our space station far more affordable to the majority of people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not easy to be the last guy to ask questions. So most of the questions are gone, but still I want to congratulate the team, and I say you made a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Though I have a few reservations, but still congratulations, and I think you did very well. So this is a private kind of endeavor, so it's everything you do should point at how much you make, right? All the activities like in-space assembly and manufacturing and all of that, they should point to how much you are able to make. So what are the lessons we can bring from ISS in terms of in-space manufacturing, for example? What are the lessons we can bring to help your team, to help this project how much you can get from INSAM, in-space assembly and manufacturing? Because just to note that most of the in-space assembly and manufacturing now are R&D.
Yeah.
They are not,
Making
don't
money.
pay, they don't make money.
Exactly.
So
yes.
What's your...
Well, thank you for your question. I'd like to invite Johnny onto the stage to answer this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyro. That's a great question. If I can come back to you with a classic example, and that's basically the production of optical fibers, which has actually been done on the ISS as part of research and development. We're not quite there for manufacturing. But in order to do this, and also I bet also for things such as semiconductors, we're talking about producing exceptionally fine, high-performance material. And for that, you need a very, very stable base. Now, unfortunately, if you put humans on board, which has come out from the ISS, they create a huge amount of vibration. I mean, if you think about the ARAD, the deadlifting machine and weights, that causes that. So at some point, one of the things that we're going to have is to work out a work cycle to how we can have, for example, tourists on board or astronauts that are there for a 6-month period and need to effectively keep themselves in tip-top condition. And also have a profitable cycle, because if I'm producing material, I want that to be running 24/7. So I think certainly one of the things that we've looked at that seems really interesting is the string of pearls concept. So to have these modules just set off board, perhaps within reach of a robotic arm, call it flying in formation, and basically that will allow us to have the manufacturing production runs at the length of time that we need for that amount of profitability. That also means they're within, let's call it grabbing distance, because if the production material fails, that'll need to be recycled. But also we're preserving the health of the astronauts on board. And again, we've not even got into things such as generators, electrical generators, renewing air supplies, etc., etc. So I think for us, the biggest lesson is how do we blend this human and also manufacturing sort of mix, and that's probably the one answer that we'll be taking away and analysing in a little bit more detail, if that answers your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johnny.
So alas, time is against us, but I think we've come to a good conclusion. Thank you so much, TP Commercial Space Station.
Thank you very much, and if we could invite all the team on stage that has been part of this project. Thank you.